just Googled, I am a giant and I want to blow myself. The results were very strange.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, presented by CinemaSins.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, a weekly look at everything going on inside the world of CinemaSins. I'm Aaron Dicer, and I'm joined as always by Jonathan Watkins.
Hello, hello.
And Danae Hughes.
I'm currently playing a video game.
We write for CinemaSins and TV Sins and do various other things inside the CinemaSins universe as well. We literally just stopped a conversation about paying attention to each other. Like, that was literally how we got into this. And you're like,
I was curious what you were doing. I could see you were focusing downward. And...
Do you want us to wait, Danae?
No. Aaron, you're giving this dad speech about how we need to just be aware of time and wrap things up. And I'm just like, yeah. I'll just go ahead and play this video game while he gives a speech. And then you start the show and I was like, well, shit. Well, shit. Okay, well.
This is what my daughter's going to be like.
Yes.
20 years.
This is, I never had a daughter, but sometimes it feels that way. Sometimes it definitely feels like I do have a daughter.
Because you're right, Danae?
That's right.
That's right.
Well, actually, no, I'll never tell.
Oh,
hey,
man.
Aaron, will you bleep that mention of my age?
Sure.
Just keep that going.
Yep. Yeah, we'll keep that joke going. That's fine.
That genuinely made me laugh.
Even though the number he gave was very low, we'll go ahead and bleep that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get it. You want the mystery. That's funnier, though. It'll be like, aren't you beep?
I know.
It's way funnier.
Speaking of ages, I guess this isn't technically an age, but it reminded me of the SNL thing. This is our 50th episode. We're 50.
Oh, yeah. Is that
50.
that's like a kind of a fake anniversary, right?
Yeah,
or is that
yeah.
a real one?
Yeah, we can kick and stretch and jump, and we're 50.
Well, that means that a year ago, I would have already been turning in some scripts, because last week I was like, oh, my anniversary's got to be coming up, but that means it's probably already passed, because when I first started on the team as a secret script turner-inner, where the only person knowing that I was turning in a script was Jeremy and Aaron, and then it turned into what it is now. Aaron was like, hey, I've got this idea for a podcast. Let's go behind the scenes. We'll call it Behind the Sins. And you're kind of pitching it to me. And I remember being like, yeah, but I'm not even like a member of your guys' group yet. And you're like, nah, it's fine.
I think it was pretty obvious you were fitting in really well, even by this point. So, yeah.
Okay, yeah, but fitting in and having and being able to write are two different things.
Yeah.
We haven't missed a week, though, right? So, we've had a couple episodes that didn't turn out great, but because, audio-wise, but I don't think we've missed a week. So 52 would be the year, right?
I think technically 51 is going to be the year. I could look in, because when we did These Chips Are Good,
I don't count that week.
Yeah, I don't think we counted These Chips Are Good as an episode that week. So I'll go back and look at it, but our year anniversary is coming up very quickly. We'll probably do something special for that. So that'll be fun.
Ooh, like cake? I love cake.
Yes. After our long thing on spreadsheets that might or might not be in the outtakes.
It better be in the outtakes. I want to talk about it.
Somebody emailed me a spreadsheet of their ideas for CinemaSins Awards. So maybe we'll do like an annual CinemaSins Awards in June every year on Behind the Sins, and do that kind of thing.
Awards for what?
So have our members vote
best
on
penis
best
reference.
sin and best video and that kind of stuff. Favorite running joke. I don't know. And I thought it was a fun idea. We'll think about it.
It's super a fun idea. I think it would be difficult because I would want to be thinking of those things throughout the year so I could write them down, because now that it's been a year, I won't remember any of it.
Yeah.
Although right now I will say Buttons is fresh on my mind, so that would be an easy one.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the special episode will look like at this point, and maybe it's something we can do annually, but just,
hey,
we'll
I have
some
an idea,
fun.
Aaron. Here's an idea. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. You go through every episode, so and pull out your favorite moments, and then we can listen back.
At the very least, I think there will be a favorite moments of our first year together kind of thing. But I think we'll let the fans do that. We'll hit up Discord and just ask them for their favorite moments and that kind of stuff.
It'll be These Chips Are Good. I don't know if anything.
Here's what we don't want it to be. We don't want it to be everything in the outtakes. a specific moment.
Yes,
Something
yes.
specific.
Yes, exactly. From the show. Yeah. So and the outtakes count. I mean, if there's a specific outtake, you'll just need to timestamp us to it. If you can
Timestamp us.
You can
Yeah.
email that to us. You can hit us up on Discord, Twitter, whatever, and we'll try to put those together for you here for a year anniversary.
I like when we have these. You'll see these people that are like, like somebody recently tweeted. I finally got around to, I'm a Sincast listener. Finally got around to listening to BTS, and I've binged all the episodes. I was just thinking like that's a lot of listening to me. If you're binging, like you're probably hearing more of what I have to say over the last week than my wife has over the last year. If you really did that, so that's crazy.
We've had that discussion, my wife and I. It's like, do you know how many people hear your voice more than I do? Yeah, it's the life I chose. Yeah.
I don't think my wife's upset about that part of it. It's like, good, go talk to them. Leave me alone.
Had enough.
I'm watching.
Can't you go podcast?
Yeah, I'm watching Gossip Girl for the 5th time through.
Fun times. I have to say, and we'll probably celebrate it even more when we do the actual episode. But man, what a fun first year it's been. As crazy as the world has been, this has been a nice little light for us to have this time together. So it's been fun.
And it's been 2020 the entire time.
For the entire year. Yeah, it does feel that way. Let's move into the SinSide Scoop.
What's he building in there?
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
This is a true story.
We're going to take a look at the videos from the week, the process of sending them, how we felt about the stuff we send in general. We're still in our Rick and Morty run of contemporaneous sinning, continuing to send the Rick and Morty episodes as they come out. This one was Childrick of Mort, which is a play on Children of Men, and this is the one where Rick had sex with a planet and made planet babies. So, what did you think about this episode, Jonathan?
I did actually, because this was the one script I wasn't on in any capacity, but I did watch the episode, and I thought it was fine. I wasn't really looking to see what people were saying about it. I don't know if people are really loving this, like Rick and Morty fans or not. It definitely had some funny moments, but I thought it was just kind of a decent episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. But again, I think of us, I'm the one who probably takes longer to get tired of things than other people, and that's probably part of my disease of optimism or whatever I have, where it's like, this movie or this show is still the best, and like other people get tired of stuff before I do, and I'm just feeling that way this season. I'm like, I love this stuff. I just think they're so clever, and the writing is so fun, and I'm really enjoying it.
I'm having it's funny because we just did the season finale, and I'm having trouble like differentiating the two because there's because his daughter factors into both of them. And
well, they're both full family episodes, and that's kind of one of the things I loved about this episode was as soon as they're in the car together at the beginning, I'm like, this is what I miss. Like this is I love the first season because it was really getting to know the family's relationship and all those things together. And the Rick and Morty part is the central relationship of the show, but there's something about that whole family that I like it when they're more family-based episodes.
No, I like the beginning was, even though you guys rightfully pointed out, and this was Danae and Chris, right?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. This is an Atkinson Hughes script.
Oh, finally.
Awesome job. But I don't know, but I loved the thing in the car where you guys talked about, like, why would Rick be on this trip? Like when he turned himself into a pickle to get out of having to deal with his family.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
interesting thing is that we had all of the assignments for who was going to write on what, but obviously because we're doing this contemporaneous sending, we don't know what the episode is going to be. So we really can't be strategic about who is on what script. It's more like just a grab bag. Like, we'll see what's going to happen. So it was I was relieved in a way to be assigned this one because it was more like that family style Rick and Morty that I really enjoyed, rather than a storyline kind of just Rick and Morty going off by themselves. So I was actually super relieved to watch this one and go, okay, I feel like this one's more comfortable for me.
Yeah.
So
I know what we mean, but it is funny to say family episode when it's about an asshole impregnating a planet and trying to then leave, although he does end up staying. But
it's such a dysfunctional family.
Yeah.
And it, in this
just a little bit.
Yeah, and in this episode, you really kind of see even Summer turning into Beth in a way. And I'm sure that's very intentional. The idea that Beth is who she is because her father is who he is. And then the children are obviously, a part of that. So you're kind of seeing these elements of their personality really start to come out in this way. I kind of wish they would even lean more into that sometimes, but I feel like then it wouldn't be Rick and Morty ridiculous adventuring
You make a good point, though. I think one strong suit about this season is that they've made Summer a more interesting character, and they've even there's been a couple of times where Morty's been like, "Man, you're turning into Rick." So not only is she turning into Beth, she's kind of turning into Rick.
Yeah, she really is.
Yeah, so that's been kind of fun to watch. Just that, and then as you guys talked about in this episode, though, Jerry has just become he's just the one people step on, I guess. Even more so than in the past.
It makes you uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable sometimes when I'll watch these types of relationships that are, for our entertainment, where there's a character that's so shit on. There's a moment when Summer is just absolutely being a totally horrible person to her father as they're camping. And I kind of paused it for a second because I was uncomfortable, feeling feeling bad for Jerry. And I thought, this is kind of an example of what toxic relationships can look like. And I think that's probably the point here, even though they're having fun and they're making a comedy and it's just silliness and sci-fi crazy. There's still an example of what a toxic relationship is. And there really wasn't a moment of closure in that. This isn't the kind of show that buttons that up and has a conversation at the end where Summer's thinking that she was in the wrong. It's a clear example of what happens when you don't talk about how the toxicity can continue a cycle of abuse. And so, I don't know, it was an interesting kind of, this is weird. This is striking a strange element in me while I'm watching this quote unquote entertaining show. Because at the end, they're in the car and Rick is blame shifting over to the kids about what they did rather than keeping something for himself, which is another example of toxic relationships. So I think this show really is a outlet for a lot of conversation in that toxicity realm and trying to bring lightness to it. So
thanks today, I'm no longer having. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those instances of if you admire this character, you're missing the point. Rick and Morty is one of those things where, if you watch Rick and Morty and you're like, "Oh, Rick's the best," you're missing the point. That is not the point of the show. And yeah, you can see it throughout. I was
fascinating. We're going to talk about Archer after this because it's
right. Yeah, I was curious today because you haven't been watching all of the other episodes, right? This isn't a show you're keeping up on. So this was the first episode you watched from front to back this season. Did you enjoy the episode?
She played a video game while she was watching it. So.
It's possible.
While I sin, I actually have one eye in a virtual reality game.
Well, hey, Jeremy can watch another movie while he's sinning.
It's weird. I don't know how he does that.
Anything's possible.
Oh, God. Your question was whether I enjoyed the episode itself?
Yeah, when you watched it, were you like, oh, yeah, I do kind of like this show? Because it's kind of your first chance to, at least this season, to watch a full episode.
Yeah. Like I was saying, I think I had a good time getting back into the Rick and Morty realm of it, and then also layered over the top of the ridiculous, in-your-face comic element was this toxic family development going on. But yeah, I had a fun time sinning it because I was able to sin it. I was able to find a few angles, and even Chris and I had a couple of overlaps. For example, the s'mores thing, we both had some stuff about s'mores, and I felt pretty confident. There was a couple things I tried to sin in this one that I really couldn't get my footing on, that maybe was too much of a reach. And it's interesting, again, we're in this really interesting time in our life. There's protests that are happening. There's brutality that's happening. There's harsh conversations that are happening. There's politics, and it's just there's so much going on. And at one point in time, there was a comment about homelessness and unemployment, and I was thinking more about COVID and how that seemed like it was insensitive to sort of joke about homelessness and unemployment, because there's people that are literally dying in the streets even before COVID. And I just felt like this is weird. Yes, I'm a sensitive person to these topics. I'm sensitive to jokes about slavery. We'll get to that in Archer. Things like that are sensitive to me, and I don't think that it's funny, and I think a lot of people do think this stuff is sort of funny, and that's like the point. For me, I kind of get stuck on that a little bit. So I was trying to kind of find an angle too about like, hey, you had a chance in episode 1 to add a COVID joke, so we know you can go in and self-edit a little bit, and maybe that one was a little bit too ill-timed. But then when this episode releases, we have this whole different world. Like no one's talking about COVID and homelessness and unemployment anymore right now. Like there's a bigger conversation that needs to happen. So things are just changing so fast right now. So I'm kind of glad that one was not in the final script because I think it would have even felt like shining a light on something that doesn't need to have a light on it right now.
I mean, to be honest, we feel that pressure too, right? Because we record these almost a week ahead of time before they release. And so by the time they come out, so many things, especially right now, are changing and happening. And so we're very aware of how things might sound, how things are. And
same for, Archer with the slavery. I know I'm getting ahead of myself, but since we're talking about it now, these scripts are written so well in advance. I mean, obviously, Rick and Morty were trying to do something totally different, but our normal schedule is to have our scripts done 2, sometimes even 3 weeks in advance. So if something is on the nose for the times, it's kind of one of those cool little destiny, fate, winky nod moments. So yeah, I found myself enjoying it in some ways, but also just, I don't know, maybe Rick and Morty is kind of losing its luster for me a little bit.
That could be. Let's go into the Sins video, which did not lose its luster for me. I thought this was a great script. One of my favorite parts about narrating now is getting to really internalize these scripts and kind of read them, and then kind of it's one of those things where it's one thing when I write on it and then I'm aware of it through the whole process, and it's another thing when it comes to me and I'm like, oh, here's this complete thing that I get to experience. That's been a fun thing. I really like the Faraday box stuff. I super know what a Faraday box is. Was one of my favorites. I loved that. And there are critters in those planet holes. Was one of my favorite runs. Enjoyed that. The father could be Lisa Simpson for all they know. I loved that because I love it when a sin has that juxtaposition of what you're saying is not true. Lisa Simpson could not be the father. She would be the mother, but it's just in that moment it works. It makes sense. It just, I don't know, that makes me giggle.
Yeah, when I saw that one from Chris, I cracked up.
Yeah. Why is the sign for interns plural when everything else is singular? This might be the worst sin Rick and Morty has ever committed.
Yeah, there were so many sins in that factory that were genuinely fun. Actually, Chris kind of brought it up when he was talking about the script, and we didn't read his commentary, so maybe I can do that next.
Yeah, we'll read what Chris had to say. That's true. We totally skipped over that.
No, you're good. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
The only other thing I was going to mention, aside from Machina Ex Deus, which is just a brilliant little turn, I did want to mention the Sophia Hadjipantelli thing, and I didn't know if you were saving that for any of the other segments or anything, but I did want to talk about that at some point at least.
We'll talk about it in Keeping Tabs.
All right, we'll talk about that in Keeping Tabs. Why don't you read what Chris had to say, and then we'll continue to talk about the Sins video.
A lot of what we kind of already covered. He said it's a decently fun premise with Rick having successfully mated with an entire planet, of course leaving to your imagination how something like that is possible. He said, I was kind of disappointed though it turned into what it did. Rick turns out not to be the actual father, and the real daddy is a Zeus-like god who has waited until Rick, Beth, and Gaia have successfully raised an entire society. Feels like this could have turned into something fun, but Rick and Morty always seem to have a battle on their minds as the resolution to a story, and that's what this devolves into. This episode also turns up the heat on hapless Jerry, who, as noted in the Sins video, has become this show's Meg Griffin, endlessly picked on for his fecklessness. Mm-hmm. That's a new word for me.
Oh, nice.
Fecklessness.
You learned.
It's not frecklelessness.
No.
It's not fickleness. It's fecklessness.
It's not the other vowels either.
Those are the words I knew. Leave me alone. For the Sins video, the fun of this for me was pausing on several shots of the giant factory Rick had built out for Gaia and seeing the images that the children are being forced to watch as they become functioning members of society, like tic-tac-toe. That was especially a fun one for him to rip on.
Yeah, that was a fun sin. For sure. Jonathan, what about you? What did you think of the video?
You guys actually mentioned all the ones I had written down, but do you know what the s'mores outtake was from, Danae?
Yes, I do. That was mine.
What was that from?
That was from The Sandlot.
Oh, man, I haven't seen that movie in forever.
That's a good movie.
That was very, very funny.
Yeah, that was a fun one. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Justin's a huge baseball fan, my husband, and so we watch baseball movies. And that one was fun for me because I was like, oh, there's that s'mores riff in Sandlot, and I was able to find it. So
cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it was a great video though. I thought it was very funny.
Danae, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I really liked being able to point out the whole vulva situation and birthing situation in this one. I feel like Rick and Morty does a great job of, showing us they can draw a dick and balls very well. In fact, there's one that was in the factory that was fruit, to my point. And then when they have a chance to show that they can animate something else, maybe of the female variety, maybe one that's being birthed, that they opted not to. And then Rick shouting out over to, hey, shoot those kids straight up in the air, doing what she was already doing. I just had these flashbacks to being like, this is not helpful. You're just
I
yelling.
could hear your heart in that sin. I was like, Danae is getting something off of her chest. It's so good too. It's so true.
Yeah, it was very frustrating for a moment for me. There was a lot of stuff that I really enjoyed sitting in this one. I had a really good time. A lot of it stuff that you guys have already mentioned. So we can go ahead and move on if you'd like.
Would it upset you if I defended the genital drawings in Rick and Morty a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll move on.
You can go for it though. I'd like to challenge you for that one.
They do actually occasionally draw vulva-ish,
but not in this moment.
Well, and this is what I was going to say.
It's a gigantic crater. It's a circle inside of a circle inside of a circle, and then a sphincter in the middle.
Right?
Well, no. But here's the thing.
Ridiculous.
In this case, they probably wouldn't have been able to get that through because the thing they're drawing is representing actual genitalia. It would be the planet's genitalia, and so it would be like you can't draw that in that. It has to be something that's unrelated. Like when you see phallic things in the show, it's not like they're supposed to represent actual reproductive organs.
But just move the sphincter up a little bit. Just it doesn't have to be a bullseye. Just at least show that you at least know a little bit about anatomy, or just move stuff around so that it looks like, I don't know.
I'm with you. I want to normalize all the body parts. I'm just saying, in this case, they probably couldn't have gotten away with it.
I like how Aaron's like, Danae, would it offend you if I told you why you're wrong? About everything?
No,
Does that offend you?
I see your point though
that.
about where it might be over the top to make it so on the nose. Sure, yeah. I can kind of understand that. But let's end here. I was very pleased that I was able to point out how to skip a stone. That's knowledge that I have in my mind that I was like, oh my God, I can do something with this random bit of knowledge. So maybe we can end there instead of on the genitalia.
Works for me.
There you go.
We will move on to Archer, El Sequestro. This was a Hughes Watkins script. Jonathan and Danae wrote on this. Man, it has been a while since I saw this episode, and I didn't watch the whole thing front to back. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious for you guys to tell me, like, is this one of the best episodes of Archer? How did you feel about this one?
I don't think it's one of the best. I think Danae liked it more than I think Danae. You liked it, right?
Yeah, I did. I had a good time.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It is. I mean, but just for me personally, like I would not qualify it. I would not say it's one of my favorites. It's a very popular episode.
That's what I was going to say. I know it's really popular, and I just don't remember it that well. I mean, once I started watching the Sins video, I was like, oh, I remember this. But
it's the episode where you learn about Cheryl. So I think that probably has a little bit to do with it.
Yeah, that's probably it.
When you find out that she's an heir to a lot of wealth, and they play off that a lot in the future with the show. So I think that's probably the main thing. Yeah, and the ocelot.
And as mentioned in the video, Pam gets a chance to shine in this, and I love when Pam gets a chance to shine. So yeah, Danae, tell me a little bit about.
Danae wanted to free her nipples, though.
We're going to talk about that.
Are we?
Yeah, definitely.
I think I'm continue to be the one that has the least experience with Archer, and every time we talk about a show or an episode of Archer, rather, I'm humored by it. It makes me smile. It's ridiculous. I like the way that it's animated and the cleverness of it, and how it's intelligent. There's some parts of it that are annoying, but that's true for any show. So, yeah, I had a good time, and I also really like Archer fans too. In the comment section and things, they seem to be having a good time, which is always really, really fun to not find a fan base that's super toxic, but one that's like just having a good time. So
it kind of sounds like with Rick and Morty, you're like, I'm not sure I want to catch up on all this. It's it's fine, it's funny. But with Archer, it's like every time you watch it, you're like, I kind of want to watch this show. Like I kind of want to go back and watch these.
Well, and I also get recommendations on Twitter too, like, hey, I think you'd really like it, which is funny because I guess until officially this moment, it's not like anyone knew that I was on this one, but then they know that I'm on this one. They know I'm on this one for two reasons.
We workshopped this a lot, though.
Buttons and Button Beard, for sure. And so I was getting tweets like, hey, I know this is you, so you would definitely enjoy Archer. You should watch more. So it's just a fun one. I think people like to recommend it because it does a good job. So
well, we will.
But there's can I say something really quick about writing this? I got like Danae was I guess we have a lead writer on all these scripts for if we've never talked about that before. So Danae was the one that like put everything together. Like I sent her my shitty script and she made it better and added it with hers. But no, but she,
can I say something about that real quick?
What?
We were talking about medication earlier, and that was one of the moments when I was heavily medicated. And it was the strangest experience because I get Jonathan's script and I kind of just like I was on some kind of like cold and flu
this is
or
what I was
something.
going to talk about,
but I was like a little bit like I was feeling very loopy, and I literally start writing on his script, like changing everything, and I'm like, "What have I done?"
It was awesome. Well,
it was so weird. I felt really bad, and then I was like, "I kind of like it. Let me send it to him and see what he says."
But then I gave you some notes, and then we kind of went back and forth and workshopped.
No, what you're learning, Danae, is that is part of the head writer's prerogative is to edit, add new tags, add suggestions. I've done that.
But that's what I was gonna say. I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but you wrote me back like it was like almost like it's like I was just on cocaine and I just I just went for it and just I don't remember how you put it, but yeah, you just said you kind of stepped outside of your body and just started writing. It was really funny. So I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then I read it and I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Because I'll tell you one sin that because I thought it was weird that guy popped up behind Cheryl on the street and and he's like just staring her down.
Yeah, it's weird.
But they don't do anything with it. And so I just wrote something about it. And then she added the whole thing about Austin. And, now I've created this character named Austin and his backstory about the M&M store. And that was all Danae. And that's what you should be doing. That's what made it a lot better.
Yeah.
And then we workshopped the where Cheryl is fighting off the attacker. That was another one that we worked on together that ended up, I think, beneficial.
Yeah, it's the collaborative writing process, right? Like it's the beauty of that respect and grace that we all have, where it's like, I'm not going to take it personally. If you can make my stuff better, make it better. Like that's the whole
for sure.
goal, So yeah.
It's funny on that one. There's somebody in the comments. Rich Lane said, "Was that M&M store reference a callback to Rick and Morty Primordius? I mean, sure, it could be just an M&M store reference, but this is Jeremy, folks." I thought that was a really funny kind of possibility. Sorry to disappoint you. It was just
no, it's just one of those weird coincidences. But when you wrote that, I thought that was weird because Chris and I wrote the Rick and Morty script where they talk about the M&M store, and it's just it
happens. One of those weird things.
We have two on both of the CinemaSins this week. We have both of them have They Call Me Mr. Tibb outtakes.
It's just gonna happen sometimes.
4 very different
every
writers.
Week. This happens every week, and it is genuinely strange.
Yeah.
Something's in the air.
I did like this episode. I did get to learn a little bit more about the characters, and I have to say before we get into the sins of it,
sure.
I loved the whole Ocelot thing with Archer falling in love with the Ocelot. In hindsight, I wish I would have given a sin off for it or like turned it on its head because it's just such this sweet moment. We decided to sin it, which is super okay. Obviously, that's what we do. CinemaSins, not cinema give 'em back sins. So. But that whole moment where he just like his heart opens up for this ocelot, and he's showing such concern for its well-being, and the delivery of the voice actors in this show is another thing that I really love. And I don't know, I was just super drawn into it, and it was very fun. So
because what is it? They're on their way to, I guess, try to figure out how they're going to rescue Pam, and they've got to get Cheryl stashed away. And he's like, well, we need to stop off and buy the ocelot a toy or something.
Yeah, he's like, you gotta get him a tire swing or something.
Yeah, I loved it. I've got a lot to mention since I wasn't the one to write on it. The not screaming was one of my favorites. The also illegal puppet shows was good.
Yeah, I learned that from Danae.
Also illegal puppet shows. Who'd have thought it? The sin off for Pam, woot woot. I agree. She deserves her time. Low lowbility made me smile. I always love a good portmanteau. This is I'm sure we'll talk more about the buttons, because this is just a wonderful animation running joke now that is, I'm sure, going to pay off many, many times. But I want to ask, was the button thing discovered because of the moment where the buttons are on different sides of the shirt? Because that blew my mind. I was like, of all the button mistakes you can make, and I just love the little addition of which is the dumbest thing ever, or whatever it was in that part. That was great.
When I saw them on both sides and we're at the end of the episode, then I knew that all of my notes of button inconsistency, I had to do something with it. Because I wasn't sure if I was going to write a bonus round or not at that point, because you sort of have to. But once it went to both sides, that was it for me. I knew 100% I had to do a rant, because who animates buttons on both sides of a shirt? Who does that?
That's so weird. It's so weird. And if you haven't seen the first button rant, that's in the Family Guy pilot episode, if you want to search that one out. But I really love that. And then I had to say thank you for someone else taking the time to root for nipple equality. Free the nipple. Thank you, whoever that was. I appreciate you. It was nice.
Jonathan.
No, but Danae wrote, my favorite sin was Old English font. I think that was Barrett's favorite too when he reviewed the script.
It's so confusing to be a writer sometimes, because I'll write stuff and I'm like, this is amazing, and then the one that's so beloved is when I write Old English font. It cracks me up. That cracked me up.
I wrote when I did the Babadook with Chris, I wrote a sin, the Babadook comes out of the badunkadunk, because it looked like it was coming out of this woman's butt. And I almost deleted that before I sent it. And then that was the one that everybody seemed to like. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm glad I didn't.
That's why you're very liberal with what you send. The sins, the ridiculous and awful sins I have sent. Just because it's who knows? Who knows?
Oh, especially because I've sent stuff where I'm just like, ooh, I can't believe I wrote that. And they usually don't get in either, so I'm usually right. I go ahead and send them.
But sometimes
I'm a weirdo.
Sometimes you get the Babadook badonkadonk, and it just all works. So, what about you guys? What did I miss? Anything else you guys wanted to talk about in the video?
The fuck you family feud thing. I don't even know. That was my mind jumping out of my body. I don't know what made me think to do that buzzer, but I was glad we kept that in. And then weirdly, I think one last week somebody had a family feud sin, which that was another one of those weird things where in 2 weeks we kind of had the same type of sin. But that was the only other thing I had written down.
What about you, Danae?
I had I love the comment section because of the button rant, but some people were actually quoting the first button rant in this one. And that made me smile so much, the clear buttons and the black buttons. And so that was a fun little callback. There's quite a bit. And then also, of course, the Critical Role reference, which once again, shout out to all the critters, because I didn't know if I should do it or not, and I'm really glad that I did, because I wanted to do something that called to the buttons, and finding button references in movies is strange. And we'd already done the buttons, who's got the button, I think, in Family Guy, and I didn't want to just bring that one back. And so I went ahead and went to my Critical Role moments, which Not the Brave is a character in that series and has this whole thing about button beard. So to go to the comment section today when prepping for the show and see all of the love for Critical Role was I was literally floating when I walked into the studio today, because I was like, oh my gosh.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. Just so many. But one of my favorites was Mill SF11 says, confirmed, at least one of the writers is a Critical Role fan. After several hundred hours, it's impossible not to recognize Sam's not voice. There was a Fireplace Flume reference in a video a while back, and now this. Here's the exact quote, and then links like to the YouTube reference. And so there's some serious like fans, and I don't know, it was just really cool. I think because, you know, when you're like a D&D nerd and you're a Critical Role nerd, it's just a nice feeling to have an online community. And so anyway, that was fun.
Oh, real quick, one other thing I thought was funny about this script was that Danae and I had one of those moments where it was kind of like you and Chris arguing about the science, but we had one moment where we both thought the opposite about a situation. It's where Archer says that he's not going to negotiate with a cyborg.
Yeah.
And I wrote, I would totally buy that Archer would believe it's a cyborg, but I don't remember what I wrote because we went with Danae's, but then Danae's was the exact opposite. Like,
yeah.
I can't believe for a second he would believe that's a cyborg, but that would be a much more interesting story. It was so funny.
Yeah, and I had to lean on Jonathan for that one because I don't watch the show. And so I said, which one is more like his character? Because we obviously want to go in that direction.
Yours made the most sense because that's the weird thing about the show is Archer's actually really good at his job, but he's just an idiot and he's an asshole.
Yeah,
much like Rick.
Yes. Yeah, it's very similar. They are proficiently self-centered.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's
and
just
Archer, like, he's even like he's well read. I mean, he's very intelligent, but he just he just says the worst things imaginable.
Yep, there you go. All right, let's move on to music video sins. Doja Cat, Say So. Apparently, this is kind of correct me if I'm wrong, but this was like a TikTok thing that then became a thing.
I guess. I meant to ask my daughter if she knew who she was. I had never heard of her or this song until Barrett sent the script in. So this was new to me. So I kind of liked the song.
So it's Barrett Share song. I don't. Or Barrett Share script, not a song.
I was like, that's a song? He did this?
Yeah, Barrett wrote this as well. By the way, Barrett's leaving music video sins.
No, because I was getting ready to say I actually don't like the song.
Okay.
I don't ever want to hear it again.
Do you want me to read what he said?
Yeah. What did Barrett have to say?
He said it's been out for a few months and he had heard the song many times without knowing it was Doja Cat. And actually, he does like it, but he's happy with the sins that references a song like Get Lucky is a much better approximation of the neo-disco. He also wrote several things about her behavior around the technician before finally settling on, oh my, she's actually presenting. She's obviously going for a hyper-sexualized video and kind of pulls it off. She looks amazing and has some rad dance moves. By the way, there have been some issues around her personally, but I don't want to get into that in the video since I didn't know enough about it.
I don't know anything about that. Like I said, this is the first time I never heard of her or watched the video. The video is very funny. No, I thought the song was kind of catchy. The Don't You Say So thing just got stuck in my head. Like he said, there's something very captivating about her, and I think it goes beyond just she's pretty.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of like the video, kind of like the song. I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it again, but I was fine with it.
I was bored. What about you, Danae? What did you think? What did you think of this song?
I don't remember anything about it because I was watching her dance and I lost all sense of space and time.
That'll do that to you.
She couldn't look away from the butt.
It was that the
butt.
Hallucinogenic. That's what it was. The butt. What is it that kind of like when her arms were moving and it had like the multiple arms?
I don't know what you call that effect.
Vishnu.
He calls it out in the video, but I can't remember what it is.
Oh,
anyway,
like psychedelic.
Yeah, it was like a psychedelic like moment, and literally, I was writing my notes for this sin, and all I wrote was, "Oh."
Oh, okay. Oh,
so
well done, Danae. It's the best show prep ever. I just wrote, "Oh." That's how that works. I don't know. There is. I mean, you know, it's time for the message of the music with Aaron. There is something about this song that is strange to me because the song appears to be about, look, if you want to have sex with me, you need to say it because I was ready. I was ready for you, and you should have said something, and that's fine. But the song also goes into, you know, there's a like a lyric or two that are like, just, slap my butt and do this. And it's like, well, can we talk about consent for a second? Like, there is an element of communication where you should have communication with someone as opposed to just like, that's the whole thing we're trying to teach men, right? Is like, you should be more considerate and not so aggressive sexually. And I don't know. It was a weird thing.
It's funny to me because like you'll talk to guy friends or whatever, but like the whole like porn scenario where like you're delivering pizza or you're the electrician or whatever, and the woman like wants you, and like they're like, wouldn't that be cool? And I'm just kind of like, that would be weird, like, because like I don't know, does that make sense? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
never mind.
I just think there's a situation where we are in an era where men are, thankfully, I think, starting to learn about the idea of how to communicate, sexually with women, instead of just assuming things, and instead of just, coming right out and saying, I want you. Like, there's an element of progress to this stuff, right? Like, I don't know. And again, I know it's just a stupid pop song. I'm just saying, like, when I look at kind of this stuff, it does send a little bit of a wrong message to me. Danae?
Oh. That's all I got. Just oh.
Well, if I'm wrong, you're the one that can tell me, right? Like, you can speak from a female perspective on that whole thing.
Yeah, I could, but I wasn't listening. So
I just feel like men have rightfully being told that this isn't how it works, and then this video is saying, well, if you'd only just come right out and been aggressive, we'd have hooked up. And it's just like, well,
oh yeah, I didn't see it that way.
I don't know. It's just, I mean, that's what the lyrics say. I don't know.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
This is why we listen to Aaron. Aaron actually reads the lyrics.
Oh, yeah, I get it now. I'm the only one that read the lyrics.
No,
okay.
that's fine. Yeah, no, you might be right. I'm just saying, I didn't see it that way. No, I find that a very interesting take.
If that's the case of what the lyrics were saying, I also think that this would be a very confusing mixed message. Because it should be consent. And if a woman wants to have sex and she's making all those motions, it might be pretty obvious. But at the same time, like, she's not naked.
Yeah.
She's not naked. I mean, like, and not that we should see that in the video, but I'm saying if this is a real life scenario where a repairman comes and a woman wants to have sex and she's over there just, dancing in the clothes that she's wearing and she's singing a song about sex. Yeah, good for him for not assuming that she wants to have sex. Like, she needs to say, let's hook up. Like, actually, let's say something very specific. Let's have sex. Like, let's do this thing. And then it would be more obvious. But good on him for not assuming that that's what she was going for.
See, this is let me read a little bit of the verse.
Good.
Let me. You don't want me to?
You got a spreadsheet?
No. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. If you don't want it,
he's got a whole spreadsheet about this.
I did.
That's right.
I made a spreadsheet
Different
about
columns.
the lyrics. Let me check my chest, my breath right quick. He ain't ever seen it in a dress like this. He ain't ever been impressed like this. Right there, she's saying, look, I'm wearing this dress. That should mean something to you. Well, that's exactly the opposite of what we're telling guys, rightfully so. Just because a woman wears a dress a certain way or looks a certain way doesn't mean they want it. But this song is saying she does,
But she might just be writing what she considers to be sexy lyrics. Like, I don't know that she's trying to establish any kind of meaning in the song. I know what you're saying.
Take it, own it, steal it. Boy, stop playing. Grab my ass. Why you acting like you shy? Like,
oh, yeah, that's not okay.
Right? Like, anyway.
I mean, to me, that's not okay, but I don't like that kind of stuff in my lyrics. So
anyhow, yeah.
Well,
I didn't really listen to the lyrics. I was just talking about the melody and everything.
Let me go back and read my notes.
I did not know those lyrics existed.
I'm going to go back and read my note on this one. We can move on.
Okay.
Oh.
You just read it a little differently.
No, but there's a lot of funny stuff in the video, though.
Yeah, we should move on to the video itself. Hey, by the way, in all honesty, do you want me to stop talking about the messages of these songs? Like, is that is that interesting to anybody?
I like giving you shit.
I think it's very interesting because I don't pay attention to the lyrics the way you do.
Okay.
I'm ribbing you, man.
I'm just really curious if that scenario has ever actually presented itself in someone's life and actually happened, like that,
well,
the delivery guy.
In the course of human history, I'm sure it's happened a few times.
I'm sure it has happened. I would like, if you have a story that's true, feel free to share.
Send it to your porn story at CinemaSins.com.
Oh, damn it.
But that would be weird, right? Like, if you were like a delivery guy, I mean, that wouldn't really be sexy, would it? That'd be weird, right?
I don't know,
Am
man.
I wrong?
Listen, I'm
It's
the
never
guy.
happened to
I'm
me,
the
so
guy.
I don't know.
I'm the guy that lost his virginity to his wife on their wedding day. So, I'm probably not the one who can speak
I've
educated
role-played.
about this.
Outside of role playing, people do, goofy stuff role playing. I've worn some interesting outfits, but
Okay, this conversation has officially gotten very interesting.
I'm
The rest of the
joking.
podcast
Jonathan
is dedicated.
is a furry.
I'm joking.
All right, let's talk about.
Oh my God, leave Jonathan as a furry out of this, please. I don't want that to get
Too late.
You don't want the
not
fan
true.
art? You'll have fan art, man.
There is, by the way, I learned about furries through the show CSI, and that was a really
That's a weird
interesting
way to learn about
episode.
furries.
As
I
a
know.
lot of people did. A lot of people learned
That's
about
a really
furries through that
popular
episode.
episode,
Yep,
yeah.
a lot of people did.
And it's actually a really good episode.
It is a decent episode. Okay, so let's move on to the video, shall we? What did you guys think of the video itself? What were some of your favorite things?
Decanted Tang.
Yeah, I had that one too.
And then the wait. Found out puppet shows. Wait, that's not the right one. All just the stuff with the stereo repairman. All that was very funny. I didn't write anything specific, but the thing about the Tang, and then the other one I wrote down was, but seriously, Sheila was a bitch. I just thought that was really funny. the way he read that whole thing out.
I like the storing LPs like this. That one caught my attention for whatever reason. Thought that was funny. The impromptu prayer service to Ra, the sun god, made me giggle a little bit too. There's some funny stuff here. So good job. Danae, you want to read your notes again one more time?
Sure.
Fair enough. Let's move on to CinemaSins. We will kick it off with Bloodshot. It is a Scott Watkins joint. Jeremy and Jonathan wrote on this one. It is also the last movie most of us saw in the theater on the writing team because it was our Sin Week movie.
I saw The Hunt.
Yeah, you did.
After Sin Week ended, I went with some of our lovely people that attended.
Yeah.
And was not killed.
So it's interesting in that we know all the Sin crew have seen this movie. So there'll be no drinking on Danae's behalf for this one. She actually did sit through this one with everybody. It's also interesting because we've had big conversations about this movie on the Sincast. So it's
was it aired on Sincast?
Yes.
Our chat. Okay, good. Okay,
It was a
I couldn't
mini-pod,
remember if it was
yeah.
a fan only.
No, it came out as a mini-pod.
No. We Barry aired it as a mini pod, but it was really well. It was also really cool because this just happened. This was recent. Like this was what 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah.
Right. Not even quite.
I'm sure you mean 3 years. It feels like 3 years ago.
I know. But it was funny because like stuff that I talked about that I had issues with, I wrote into Sins for this, and stuff that Jeremy talked about that he had issues with, he wrote with, and that was really funny. It was like we were just revisiting our conversation.
I was waiting the whole video for him to say something about the kid that asks, God forbid, twice for their mother's attention.
Oh, I actually wrote that Sin, kids.
Did you?
Yeah, that was actually me.
I knew it would be in
he
there.
might have written it too. He might have just...
Oh my God.
That was one of my favorite parts of that mini pod was him being like, can you believe that kid?
Like, yeah.
Like,
like my daughter who just came in here to have me open up an apple juice. And she was well aware I was recording. Didn't matter to her. She didn't care.
So, yeah, I bet that was an interesting experience, having had that in-depth conversation and then writing the Sins.
His big thing was that he looked up the name Gina and got like one hit.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about that, and then he wrote a Sin about it. And then I think like I know I talked about the Dalton guy being like an asshole from the get-go.
Yeah.
I wrote a Sin about that. It was fun. It was really fun to work on. And much like Danae and I on Archer, a lot of our Sins are kind of merged together. Like there was a lot of stuff that he kind of like added like my end, like he used something I wrote for the ending of it.
Nice.
And that kind of, there's a lot of collaboration there. We had a blast. We were like cracking each other up, going back and forth with notes.
I'm very excited for Danae to read Jeremy's response about sending Bloodshot. So, Danae.
If Bloodshot were a piece of fruit, it would be the kind that has no flavor, and then you get sick after eating it. And when you go to the doctor, you find out it wasn't a piece of rotten fruit, but rather a plastic piece of fake fruit. And now you have to poop it out. But it's going to take a few days. and it's not going to feel good, and you're going to have rectal soreness for weeks. And honestly, it would have been better if you hadn't picked up that piece of fruit or even noticed it in the first place, and you spend your days pining for a world without real fruit just so you'd never get tricked into eating fake fruit again.
That's the best. That last line, that you spend your days pining for a world without real fruit because you'd never get tricked into eating fake fruit. That is beautiful. If that hasn't been used in a script somewhere, it needs to be. That is wonderful. Yeah, that's fun stuff.
That should be on a shirt. the whole rant.
If you guys thought this movie was bad the first time through, the second time through, it's borderline torture. It was fun because there was so much to sin and it was so fresh on my mind, so it was really easy to kind of remember things. And then when I was watching it, I remembered everything that happened in the future. Go ahead.
I'm glad you guys mentioned the promise of the movie. Because that's what stood out to me the most, is there is another movie that could have been made here that would have been very fun and interesting, and they just were not interested in making that movie. So I was glad to hear you guys mention that too.
There's literally like several issues of a comic book that they could have pulled from, and they decided to just whatever they did.
Yeah.
I do want to say that Jeremy does go on. He says, on a more serious note, I did some Googling to confirm my hunch that flour is flammable as hell, which ends up being a perfect microcosm of this movie. No attention or care went into the details, which is odd because you can't even say they instead put care into any other part of the film either. Ultimately, it's a shit show of sloppiness.
Yeah.
And then in parentheses, he says, Lamorne Morris is nearly as funny with one line in the movie as J.K. Simmons is in Terminator Genesis.
That was an interesting moment, too, because I had written something about Lamorne Morris in that scene, but I still took a sin off because I was like, what a wasted, performance or whatever. I can't remember how I put it.
Yeah.
And then especially after the Chris and Barrett looked at it, we decided to actually just go ahead and take a sin off, because I was sitting there thinking, there's no way I'm taking a sin off for this fucking movie. But that is like a genuinely great moment. It really is. So, and a lot of people were happy that we took a sin off for that.
It is interesting.
So I'm glad we did.
It's interesting to go back to this because we did have such an in-depth conversation months ago about this movie, but it's also a weird movie, and I think we're all going to have this in our lives in some way, where there is something that happened, whether it was an event or a movie or music or something that happened right in that tipping point before COVID got really crazy. And that for us was Sin Week. It was this movie, because as we were meeting was when there was more conversation being had about people that weren't able to even come back to port after going out on a cruise. Those were all the breaking conversations as we were starting up our event.
Well, most of those, I remember reading so many different articles on the way home from Sin Week where it was like, today they have canceled the NBA season because an NBA player has tested positive, and I was like, oh my goodness, like people forget it happened over the course of 24 hours, basically, where the world went from, this is going to be a thing to, this is going to be a thing.
I got home from the first night, our dinner. I got home, turned on TV. It was on ESPN. They were talking about NBA canceling. They were at the game that was supposed to be played that night. So it happened literally that night. Like we said, our dates were crazy. If we had scheduled
really
it for a week later, we never would have had it.
We wouldn't have been able to meet. And it was right in that time window where, everyone was able to have a good time, but then in the back of our minds, we're all like, we weren't really hugging as much or shaking hands as much. And that was happening because we were all kind of aware of what was happening. But then there was the concern, are we all going to be able to get home? And then once we get home, are we going to have toilet paper? So Bloodshot has a lot tied to it for me. And it's the last movie I saw in the theater. It was a moment where the theaters even had just decided to start splitting people and have fewer in their theaters, which at that point was a personal decision. It wasn't even something that was coming from officials. It was like,
Aaron's wife was really happy about that. By the way. She was ecstatic.
So it's interesting to go and like watching the Sins video was a lot of fun because I'm like right back into that conversation, and then there's that more serious tone. And I don't know what it is for you guys in your life, those of you who are listening, just that was right before COVID. But for me, it's Sin Week and Bloodshot was that kind of tipping
I will
point.
say Bloodshot is one of those rare bad movies that will never escape the public consciousness, I don't think, because of how much it at least movie people, how much it has embedded in COVID-19. Because that was like the last big release weekend.
Yeah.
And probably Tenet will be the next one. So like I have a feeling both of those will be the two movies that people most associate with COVID. Maybe Trolls, because Trolls was the first like VOD release and everything. But yeah.
Do you want me to flip over into my favorite sins?
Go for it, Danae. What do you got?
That moment, just the delivery of having a second chance or coming back from the dead, and then it's like, what about Lazarus? What about Jesus? Like, that was just hilarious.
Yeah, and Jeremy said it was literally while he was writing The Sin, he came to that realization. So that is like honest. The thought process right there. Like,
that's so funny to me.
I know.
Because I figured it was Jeremy because just how it was delivered is so like, as you write a sin, sometimes you'll have a revelation and you want the sin to be delivered in this very specific way, so it sort of encapsulates or it encompasses and delivers in the way that it was intended. And so you have to sort of give notes to the narrator, like, hey, if you could deliver this word, like you've just dropped ice cream on your foot.
Yeah. That's like
something weird like that, you know?
That's as like close to a real-time sin, though. He said as he was writing it, he was just like, wait, what about Jesus? So
it's perfect.
I really love
it's a
that
great
one.
sin. It is. If we ever do awards, it will contend for Sin of the Year, because that is so good.
Too. Like, if I had written it, I don't think it would have been written the same way, and I don't think it would have been read the same. So it's one of those crazy things where it just like it worked out perfectly.
It was so funny. Yeah. The sin, like, imagine that you've created a catchphrase, I always come home, and then you realize later it could have been, my dick is classified as lost. It's so funny. Like, oh, that one killed me. We already had the kid conversation. It was just really fun in the moment to be in front of a live audience where Jeremy is like, this kid comes to the door like 6 times. Like, fucking kids. And we're like,
guess who's not the parent in this conversation, you know?
And then I didn't realize that, or think about it in the movie or even in our conversation at Sin Week, that he can hack into her gear and threaten her and exude his power over her. Why couldn't he do it for the guys? And so I had a nice little moment where I was just like,
I hadn't thought about
man,
that either. I'm like almost positive that was just Jeremy. There were so many of these that were kind of.
It was a good point.
Line.
A really good
It
point.
was a very good point.
It's a metaphor for the patriarchy. That's what it is.
I'm telling you. That's why it pissed me off.
I wanted to mention the whole beginning section, because as I'm watching him, and I'm like, none of this is real. How are they going to tie in the fact that these sins are kind of intentional, or sin-tentional, if you will, because they are, they're creating this over-the-top environment.
We went back and forth about exactly what you're talking about, but go ahead.
But you included the line, and this is what makes it work for me. You included the idea they shouldn't want him to spot the sin in this scene, and that is so true. And that makes all the other sins valid, right? Because sure, the candles are meant for atmosphere, but in his mind, this is a real world. Why wouldn't he be looking at the candles and being like, why do I have all these candles in my room? You know? So yeah, I really liked how you guys tied that back, because I was wondering how you would do it.
Well, and I was actually, when I was writing it myself, I was sending those things, and then I kind of had a moment where I was like, but this is all in his head. So then I had to figure out a way to, but I was like, but it's still definitely a sin. And then you can also get into the sins about like, why does he program him to do these certain things? And then obviously, why does he not just use the people he already has?
Yeah.
Who seem more than willing to go kill people. None of it makes any sense when you start breaking it down.
Speaking of not making sense, I love it when, for our sake, I love it when a movie does something so ridiculously wrong that it just all you have to do is say it, and that's they turn right. He follows him right, and then he turns left. That is just one of those things where it's like, who did this? You know?
When I love the names that Jeremy gave them. I don't remember what they are at the top of my head. He was like, Yeah,
it was good. Speaking of names, that was the only other thing I had written down. The dropping of the Oscar Pistorius reference was so
funny.
good, because it's so perfect. And lots of appreciation for that.
Yeah, you guys really like Jeremy's sins. That's great. No, I'm just joking. No, you mentioned some of mine. Yeah, you did. But I just the flower scene I'll talk about because I think combined we probably wrote about 30 sins just for like that 7 minutes or whatever, and then we had to so some of that is stuff we kind of merged together, and some of it is just we left some stuff out. But there was just so much wrong with that whole sequence.
Did we talk about at Sin Week that the flower is supposed to give him like a pale look like the character has in the comics, like that's the reason that they did
we didn't talk about that. Not that I remember. I don't
remember that.
I don't think that was the case.
I don't think anybody's come out and said that, but I have heard that that's probably what they were trying to do there, because I guess the character in the comics is basically almost looks albino white, like, you know.
Oh, interesting.
Well, actually that blue look kind of at the end of the movie, that's where we say like it took an hour and 45 minutes to Bloodshot. That's kind of more what he looks like.
Yeah. Anyhow, I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, but it was just one of those moments. Like I just felt like it was so obvious. Like it just felt like something Vin Diesel wanted more than anybody, you know. And I could be wrong, but that's why I wrote that thing about, you know, him watching it at the premiere. Mm-hmm. I just kind of went nuts and made up this whole story.
It's fun stuff.
But it's most likely the masturbating to anime thing was also, I thought, very funny. I love Jeremy's line about this fucking guy with this tiny dick. And then Jeremy wrote whatever Guy Pearce's name in this movie would be excellent at CinemaSins. Because then I think you could just feel Jeremy's frustration with this movie in the narration, which is just awesome. And at that moment, I just felt like, I didn't talk to him about this, but I just felt like he forgot his name and just didn't give enough of a shit to look it up.
Oh yeah, that's the whole implication.
It had
there.
to be it.
Yeah, that's the whole
so
implication.
That's why I thought that was great. And then that part where they're like, we talked about this at Sin Week too, but that part where they look back and they're like, finally we get to use all this shit, and then we just wrote the sin. Why haven't you used all this shit before?
Yeah, that was
and
really
once
confusing.
Again, if you have all this shit, what do you need Vin Diesel for?
Yeah.
Like it just, this movie is terrible.
Yeah.
I feel like I was too nice to it now, even though I didn't say anything really good about it at Sin Week.
Well, I wanted to get on the record that I was the one that liked it the least out of everybody, and I have been proven right. In one case.
I think Barrett was the only one that gave it kind of a passing
he kind of
grade,
liked
but he
it.
was just more like it was dumb and fun. But it's definitely a movie that should only be watched once. I think I was with Barrett though.
You were
just for the record. I think I'll stand with Barrett on that one. And if you go back and listen to our epic Bloodshot conversation,
we'll keep that memory and just don't watch it again.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Never watch it again.
Never, once I watched the Sins video, I was like, yeah, never mind.
All right, let's move on to the BFG, which, by the way, stands for Big Friendly Giant. This is an Atkinson Dicer script. Chris and I wrote on this one. Man, this one kind of came out of nowhere. It's a movie I'd forgotten existed, but I definitely remember watching it back in the day.
Isn't this a Roald Dahl?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's based on the Roald Dahl book, and a lot of this. And again, the books don't matter according to what we do, but a lot of the stuff we sin is in the book. You know, the rocket farting, all that stuff. You know, that's in the original text.
Oh, interesting. I read the book as a kid. I don't remember much of anything about it.
But yeah, I guess I'll start. I actually kind of like this movie, and I'm interested to hear Chris's thoughts because I don't think he liked this movie at all. And I think a lot of it has to do with his Spielberg love, and just kind of seeing Spielberg make kind of second-rate stuff is not fun. But what did he have to say about it?
He said the true deterioration of Steven Spielberg's work started somewhere in the late 2000s. Uh-huh. Speaking of Spielberg, probably my favorite director of all time growing up, you could almost always count on his movies being something special. He had some misses in the period from 75 to 2005 when he made the most well-known films, but even in his misses, you could see something there that was better than your average director. Somewhere along the way, he lost the ability to choose material that accentuated his strengths. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull shows cracks in the armor. You get a war horse or adventurous Tintin.
I love the Adventures of Tintin, by the way, so I don't know what he's talking about with that. But continue.
I like it. I don't love it, but I like it.
He says he started making movies that look more like everything else, I think is kind of his point. Mm-hmm, Almost any director could have done the Ready Player One that he made. It's possible Lincoln is his best movie of the last 12 years, sprinkled in with some average Bridges of Spies and The Post. Somewhere in the middle of that was the BFG, an adaptation of an Roald Dahl book. There's a distinct lack of wonder in this movie. I feel like the Spielberg of old would have made giants cooler, more terrifying and imposing, and would have completely excised the scene where the BFG ends up in Buckingham Palace. There's nothing special about the animation. The inventive Spielberg seems long gone, and I hate watching a Spielberg movie and just seeing averageness. For the sins video, my favorite sin that I wrote was perhaps the most nitpicky thing, one that may be technically unverifiable, but fun to write about nonetheless. When Sophie is taken by the BFG to his house and later hung up on a tree branch, it looks pretty clear that she would not be able to escape. She could not possibly reach that branch, but when the movie cuts to a close-up, she's much closer to the branch and is able to escape easily. That occupied my time more than it should have. It was fun ripping everything apart, which I'm going to talk about that. It was fun ripping everything apart during the Buckingham Palace scene, as everything that there seemed stitched together. I'm not familiar with the source material, but it seems difficult to believe that's how it went down in the book. Could be wrong, but it seemed a little out of place, much like the giant himself.
Yeah, I think it pretty much did go down like that in the book, if I'm remembering correctly, but it has been a while, so I could be wrong too.
Can I say, though, I know, I feel like I'm on an island about this, but man, and I usually don't use boring to describe a movie because I think it's lazy, but Lincoln is one of the most boring-ass movies I have ever seen.
I mean, I disagree.
You also love biopics, but
I do.
But I still don't think that's why, because I don't think this is a traditional biopic, but man, I don't know, maybe I need to watch it again, but that was one I just didn't like. Also, I feel like I like The Post more than a lot of people.
I like The Post. I really like The Post.
I mentioned that on a Sincast, and man, Barrett looked at me like I had taken a shit on his face. I mean, like, are you really like that opposed to The Post? Like, what about The Post? It's
he looked
pissing you off.
He looked excited and turned on then?
Yeah, exactly. He was very stoked. Bridge of Spies is actually quite good too. I didn't hate Ready Player One. I'm
with you.
Yeah, I saw the BFG for the first time this week.
Oh, what'd you think?
I don't know if I disliked it as much as Chris, but it definitely didn't it didn't move the needle for me. Like, it was fine. Like, I didn't hate watching it, but it wasn't something I'm like, ooh, I got to go show this to my daughter.
Yeah,
I think the Giants look really weird. I'm so glad you guys mentioned Christmas Carol because that's all I could think of the whole time I was watching that one character. But you know, I am curious if Spielberg had made this like in the 80s, what it would have looked like. I kind of like Chris's, but it's perfectly fine. I don't think I disliked it. I now only have one Spielberg movie I've never seen. I've never seen War Horse.
Yeah,
and I don't really want to because the horse dies, right? So I don't want to watch that.
It's not great. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why I liked this movie. It has been since it came out, since I watched it again. And I think it probably has to do with the... why am I forgetting his name? The Central Giant performance. He was in Bridge of Spies, too. He's great.
Yeah, he won the Oscar.
Anyways, Rylance? Is it Rylance?
That sounds right.
Mark Rylance, maybe? Anyway, I think I really connected to his performance as this giant. There's something very innocent and pure about it that I liked. And I think the problem with this movie is that if you think you're supposed to connect with the little girl, it doesn't deliver on that. It never tells us anything really about her or her story. So it's this weird thing where the movie is ostensibly about her, but it's really about him, but the movie doesn't honor that in any way.
And she's kind of unpleasant. Like,
she's
not a very...
Right.
And that's a problem I had with the movie. Like, she's just a very unpleasant character.
Sure.
Maybe she's supposed to be.
Sure.
Dahl was pretty
not
infamous
nice
with making his kids annoying in his books,
yeah.
Which I think led a lot of people to wrongly believe that he didn't like kids. But like Charlie, even like if you read Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like Charlie's not a very good kid.
Well, and especially those other kids. Like that movie is all about how kids are awful. Yeah, totally.
So,
Danae, have you seen it?
Drink. No.
Okay. What are some of your thoughts in watching the video? Like, does it look like a movie you would want to see?
Are you scared of giants?
No, I'm not scared of giants. I do not enjoy sharks, so let's just talk about that for a second.
She has to work with a giant every day, so...
Well, I mean, Spielberg directed Jaws, so I mean, it kind of has to do with this.
So earlier, somebody tweeted a picture of a shark that, not to me, but just like in their feed, they were talking about something. And so I hid it. I told Twitter, like, I don't want to see this. Hopefully that means I didn't actually block that person. I'll have to go back and check. But anyway, I refreshed my feed, and then now they're showing me an advertisement that had a shark in the advertisement.
What?
So I know. I was like, excuse me, Twitter.
There was something I thought you were about to say there. I don't remember. I guess it was a shark. There was, because somebody said they didn't tag you, but somebody said in the comments, did somebody tweet this to scare Danae Hughes?
Yeah, I didn't see that
same picture. Okay.
I don't know. I'm avoiding it
Well,
completely.
obviously, I didn't share it with you because I knew you wouldn't like it. But and they were nice. They didn't tag you.
But thankfully,
mentioned your name.
there's no triggers in this one that I could tell. It has. I love Roald Dahl though, and I like just the whimsy, like all of the names for things and stuff. That's something that I would really, really enjoy. But maybe it would be something I would enjoy reading. Which reminds me that one point in time, I gave my Roald Dahl hardbook set away to somebody because they needed something to read, and I wish I wouldn't have done that because it'd be really cool to read that, I think, to Iris soon. And so I'm on another tab. I've got you guys up, and on the next tab I'm looking right now for a Roald Dahl book set.
Yeah, my daughter and I read a few of those when she was younger. She was actually in a play of Willy Wonka. So
there's certain writers that just have this really fun and serious whimsy to them, where there's like there's a message there. And of course, I'm not going to get that from the Sins video because we're not watching the movie together and we're sinning it. So I think I probably would read this and probably would watch it because it has a lot of the fun parts that I don't know, I enjoy.
Real quick side note about reading books to your kids, though. Nobody prepares you as a parent for how much of a pain in the ass it is to read a Dr. Seuss book to your child. I mean, I got to the point where I was just like, fuck Dr. Seuss. Like, I don't want to read Dr. Seuss anymore.
Well, you shouldn't have started with Socks on Fox or whatever the
my God,
the big wordplay rhyming one is. That's one of my favorites.
I will say my stepfather, who sadly passed away at the beginning of the year, his name, my daughter called him Pop Pop, and that was because of Dr. Seuss's Hop on Pop.
Nice.
So I shouldn't go back on my fuck Dr. Seuss, but it is a pain in the ass to read.
What'd you guys think about the Sins video?
It was funny.
Yeah, I had a good time. In fact, my very first thing is what Chris said about the whole tree branch and the thing in the ranch. I was gonna what I loved about that is at the end, it's like maybe I've gone on too long to prove a point, but I'm not an asshole. Like I've gone on a long time to prove a point. I'm that guy. I'm that asshole. Mm-hmm. I loved how that sin wrapped up because not only did it work visually, but then you could tell that it was just something that got into the writer's mind and just drove him crazy until he got it out. And what I appreciated about that is that I've had a recent experience. I spent over an hour and I made graphs and charts, and I used a ruler to actually plot out what was happening that drove me crazy. I tried to kind of even fight for it, lost the fight, so it's not even in the final script, but it makes no sense. And so I appreciated how this was wrapped up into all right, maybe I've gone on longer than I should, but I am that asshole. And I'm like, you know what? That's what I'm going to tag on to the end of these in the future. Maybe that's the writing sequence. Maybe I could have written it this way and it would have worked and made it into a script because I know what that feels like, and it worked because he was right. She was obviously standing lower and the branch was higher, and then it cuts to the next scene and there it was. So I really appreciated that one in particular because it totally reminded me of one that I wrote. Well, I think we're talking about that one next week, I think. I'm not sure, but it'll be coming up soon. The dude bros naming their penis. Didn't realize that was such a thing that all the weird giant names. So it was like, these are either giant names or the dude bros naming their penises. I thought that was really funny.
I mean,
then it kind of went.
Those names are just like, man hugger, meat dripper, gizzard gulper, maid masher. It's too perfect.
It was so funny. Yeah, I went back and I was like, okay, right, true. Don't you just hate it when you're trying your best and someone is keeping score of everything you're doing wrong?
Yeah.
That was great.
That was a nice little wink wink.
Yep.
Wink wink moment. The sin about dreaming about your car running on toothpaste. And the sin is like, what kind of a dream is that? But I am a dreamer. I have crazy dreams almost every night. Sometimes they're the most epic adventures, and sometimes they're like, for example, when you're about to launch a merch store, and I dreamt all night long about uploading merchandise to a website. That was my dream the entire fucking night. And whether I was doing it wrong and whether there was a more efficient way to do it. That was my dream for the entire evening, those are not great.
Were you dreaming about doing it with toothpaste, though? That's the question.
But when that sin, it just kind of triggered this thought when I tell someone, yeah, I had this dream about and then insert whatever craziness it is. It's always crazy. There's so much more to it. It's so impossible to describe a dream and because of vividness and everything. So when it was like a toothpaste that made a car run, I was so into that. I wanted to go into that dream. So that was one of those sins where I was like, actually, I think that sounds great. But my favorite one, I'll say this one and also my favorite, the pointing out all the times when she should be strong. There was a couple of those when she tried to push the window and then later she lifts the broom. And the sin is just like, but where does she get the strength? It just like the delivery of that frustration was fun for me. But the one that I loved the most was the, is that what they call me? The big friendly giant? And then the sin is, I've been saying something completely different. I loved that so much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had a good time watching this one.
Jonathan?
Sophie puts herself in quite the pickle. Was that you?
Nope. That was Chris.
Oh, I guessed wrong. Did we mention the Elizabeth Tower one? I really liked that one. And yes, I know it's called Elizabeth Tower, and thank you for reminding me, cliche.
Yes.
And I liked, what, a giant? Those aren't even fucking real.
Those are my favorite now. I love those because it's just like this thing where it's like, it's dogs don't talk, right? It's this idea of obviously the movie knows this. It's just like, so still a sin. Giants aren't real.
And then I mentioned you talking about Jim Carrey's Scrooge, which I thought was brilliant. And then the movie perfectly encapsulates its life in Florida. Like, I thought that was kind of funny. But I thought that was funny, but I was just curious where that stemmed from. Was that Chris or you? Or
which one was that? I'm sure it was Chris, because I don't remember writing a Florida joke.
Okay, it was movie. It just randomly said movie perfectly encapsulates life in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
It was when they're writing, like, and doing this sort of, like, ramming sequence.
Yeah.
It was whenever,
No, my sin there was if you were wondering where to file this movie in your collection, it goes under Nutshot or whatever it was.
That was so good. Oh gosh.
No, this was a really fun one to write on. Some of the other ones I would mention, the acronym sin, the initialism sin, where it was OMG, this OTP, BFG, POV is NFG, so PTSB, ASAP. That one was fun to research because the only acronym that's in there that I think most people would have to look up is PTSB, but that's a military acronym for pass the sick bucket. So it literally means you're getting sick. I
didn't get that one.
So
put the shit back or something.
So no. So technically it would be, oh my goodness, that should be OTT. I think it is OTT in this end. So, oh my goodness, this over-the-top BFG point of view is no freaking good, so pass the sick bucket as soon as possible. Is actually, if you kind of get those initialisms out, that was fun. I loved making the phrase breech birth from a pus pickle. just like, what is that?
It was so gross.
And then there's something about that I hadn't thought of before when I watched this movie about why do these giants crave humans so much? Like, is it a drug to them? Because it's obviously not nutritional substance. Like, they're so tiny compared to these giants. Like, what is it about humans that they taste so good that they basically go on, go crazy for them? So I don't know. It's like the Cheeto of the giant world or something. I was just trying to understand it in some way or another. So yeah. Anyways, this one was really fun to write on. So I had a good time. I think that'll do it. Unless you guys had anything else.
Nope.
All right, cool. Bye, guys.
Nope, I'm just trying to find this book set, man. Like, I'm like, okay, where is it? Oh no, what if it was a collectible? If
you need a copy of BFG, I do have one. If you want to start with that one or whatever.
Yeah, with Corona all over it.
Yeah, gross.
That's what I do during my day. I spray Corona all over our stuff. I don't know why. It's
and
just
you send it to Danae.
It's like I order COVID from Amazon and I put it in the water and I diffuse it and I spray it all over our stuff. It's just a habit. I don't know. It just happens. All right, let's move on to keeping tabs.
The internet is a communications tool used the world over where people can come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
Ha ha! Oh, jeez.
This is the most public yet of my many humiliations.
We're each going to tell a story from putting together the content for the week. Maybe a Google search, some strange research, deleted sin, whatever you want to do. Who wants to go first? Okay, Jonathan, why don't you pray for us? That's how I always feel.
No, I'm sorry. I yawned, and so I had to get my voice back.
That's just what I think every single time that happens. It's just like, why do I even ask the question?
Oh Oh my God.
Jonathan, why don't you go first?
Is that like something like if you ask who wants to pray, nobody?
Yeah,
else?
everybody just.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like that kind of thing. Nose goes.
It's
I think is
either,
what
it's
my
either
kids
that
do.
or there's always one holy person.
That's
I was
right.
gonna say like the people that really, really love to pray. That's kind of weird in its own way. Like I mean, that want to be the ones that are saying the prayer, not that
Out
praying
loud,
is weird.
out loud. In fact, I think Jesus had some things to say about people who like to pray out loud. That's actually in the Bible.
Shut your mouth is what he said.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's in there somewhere.
Jonathan, what do you got?
PTSB.
Yes.
That's part of the Bible. It's my favorite part of the Bible. I didn't really have anything I looked up. I had a couple of deleted sins that from Bloodshot. One that was interesting was that I for some reason I totally get why Jeremy took it out, but the actress that played Gina, which I forgot to write down who that was, but there was like this one shot of her in the movie where she looks straight up like Ivanka Trump. So I wrote a sin: discount Ivanka Trump, or is Ivanka Trump discount Ivanka Trump? Discuss.
Speaking of families that hold Bibles in front of churches for photo ops so a bunch of people can see them.
Skip.
Oh my God. Though I had another sin that I thought was kind of funny was just because we actually had one in there about COVID-19. Jeremy wrote one at a certain point where he was saying that the nanites were COVID-19, and then I had written one at a completely different point in the movie where the character said, "Who are you? Who am I? I'm the bloke that ruined your vacation." And so I put, based on the weekend this movie was released in theaters and this line of dialogue, my theory has been proven correct that Bloodshot is in fact COVID-19. It was just crazy that we both had written COVID-19 since on two separate things, and so Jeremy included the bit about it being released that weekend because he wasn't even thinking about that, I guess. But I just thought it was interesting that in two different moments in the movie we had essentially the same sin.
Yeah.
It was just weird.
Yeah. I'll go next. I did some research on a sin that ended up getting cut for good reason. It takes place during a dream, and when I wrote it, I didn't remember that it was a dream. And so, but it's about the physics of a giant blowing the sail of his own boat and propelling it forward. And I was like, is that how real physics would work? If you could blow strong enough into the boat sail, would it actually propel it forward?
Hey, Aaron, was your Google search, how can I blow myself? Because
that's why I was laughing, because I was sitting there trying to think of how he would have typed this in.
How did you start this one, bud?
I just Googled, I am a giant and I want to blow myself. The results were very strange.
And then you found this really weird, this old obscure porn that Andre the Giant did.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Andre the Giant never did.
Well, you haven't searched hard enough. So searched hard enough. Anyways.
Oh my God.
R.I.P. Andre the Giant.
Anyhow, so I did do a search, not that one, but I did do a search about the physics of propelling a vehicle through wind resistance from that vehicle. And technically, Newtonian physics say that's impossible. But MythBusters did an entire episode on it, which I found, and discovered that if you blow so hard that the wind, we'll say wind, quote unquote, comes off the sail and then back towards you, that you can propel yourself just slightly, and it has to be extremely hard to be able to do that. So it was kind of one of those
it's a storm wind envelope moment.
Yeah. Yeah. It was one of those things where I was like, okay, this was a worthwhile search because I really learned something. And so I wrote this whole sin about it after 20 minutes of researching this thing, watching the parts of the Mythbusters episode. I watched their small scale test and their big scale test and how it exactly worked. And it ends up it was in a dream, so we can't even put it in the stupid script.
Oh.
Mythbusters,
anyhow.
the Wikipedia of reality shows.
Yes, exactly. So anyways, I wanted to share that story. Danae, what do you got?
I have a couple of them. First and foremost, I wanted to mention that, yes, it is illegal in New York to do a puppet show, but this is from Archer. But I didn't add the asterisk, through a window. It has to be through a window. Like, you can do a puppet show. I guess they have to be like a regulated puppet show, but you can't do one through a window. So
Nice.
I think I'm super fine with leaving it the way that it is. It was corrected in the comments, so good for you on your research. But also brought up in the comments was Lacey Kate says, also illegal in New York are garbage disposals.
Oh.
So I didn't look that up to confirm, but that's an interesting one. Puppets are on the blacklist for law enforcers. Despite the city's penchant for theaters, it's illegal for a person to stage puppet performances, ballets, dances, or other forms of entertainment, quote, from any window or open space of any house or building.
Wow.
Apparently, I was looked up that garbage disposal thing. It said they technically are legal now, but apparently they were illegal up until about around 2000. So a lot of the apartments don't have, because nobody's gone back and like retroactively installed them.
Ah, interesting.
I'm guessing it has something to do with the amount of pipes and stuff, and you just don't want to put stuff down the drain.
Laws usually have reasons, and some of those reasons are ridiculous.
I used to read those like crazy laws that are still on the books.
Mm-hmm.
Those, the books would do those. You find like I think in Texas, it was illegal to take a bath with a picture of a woman to take a bath with a picture of a man.
Oh yeah, well that's understandable. I mean, we can't let that happen.
Alligators were not allowed to be chained up to fire hydrants in Florida.
Oh.
That was a
Well,
weird.
yeah.
When it's one of those things, because somebody did that. Like that law only happens because somebody did that.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But the one that you mentioned earlier is Sophia, and I'm gonna mispronounce her name. I thought you did a great job on pronouncing her name in the. You're welcome. But the Haji Pintelli. There was one person that I found in the comments who said, "So I googled Sophia Haji Pintelli, and now I'm mad at you," or something. So she is a controversial model who has fully embraced her unibrow. And when I say unibrow, she has a very dark, thick, prominent eyebrow situation going on. Not everybody has the ability to grow eyebrows like hers, but hers actually completely come together in the middle. She's beautiful. And she decided to just be a model as herself and show what body hair is on women. Uh-oh. And when we were doing the Rick and Morty episode, I follow her on Instagram. I think she's beautiful. Mm-hmm. And the joke was, does anyone even know who Kid Rock is anymore? It'd be far more likely to reference somebody that we all know. Which, does Kid Rock even have bushy eyebrows? Is that what the point was? I don't know. But I instantly thought of Sophia because she is someone that I really admire. And I actually follow a lot of very diverse women on Instagram. Even if it makes you uncomfortable, I would recommend you do it too, because maybe some stigmas of beauty will be broken down.
Amen.
I follow one woman. I follow one woman who has she has a hormone imbalance in her body, and she has a full beard. And she tried to shave it for years. She was doing laser surgery, and as she says, the beard would just grow back even thicker and more angry. Mm-hmm. And so she decided to stop fighting it and just let it grow. And so she is incredible because, I mean, think about how much flack she gets every day in her life for having a full beard. And also, she's a beautiful woman, and now she also is accused of actually being a man. So then she has to defend her femininity. So I really like supporting people who need to have positive voices in their life, that their body and the way that their body is super okay as is. So I follow women that have no shame in showing their curves, no shame in showing their scars, their body hair. And at first it made me really uncomfortable because I was raised and groomed to be a,
so to speak,
hairless, flawless, curvy person that, would never make waves, or you can make waves, but just not these kinds of waves. You know what I mean?
Like even in the bathtub, you just had to sit still and you
sit totally still.
And definitely not with a picture of a man. That would be
right.
Yeah,
that'd be very wrong. But anyhow, so it's really cool. I don't know. I like where we are in social media. I love Instagram, and I actually did a series of posts on my Insta stories where I pushed their story to everybody's forefront and showed pictures of these women and these people, kind of in hope that I do make people uncomfortable. And so anyhow, that's how I know about Sophia.
I know when I read that sin, I was a little bit concerned that people might think we were making fun of her. And so I remember we had a conversation and eventually landed on that the sin is good and means what it means, and what people interpret it to mean. Like, for example, the person in the comments who was like, I won't forgive you for that. They may think we meant it to make fun of her, but we didn't, and we know that, and the sin does not, implicate that in any way. And so I think it's good to talk about it here too, and let people know how much we actually love her and respect her, and are pro embracing who you are and natural beauty. And I for one think people need to get over the idea of like when a woman doesn't shave her armpits, going, ooh, gross. Like, get over it. Like, it's, why is it gross? Because you've been taught it's gross. Like that stuff is something we all have to deal with, our internal, how we were raised, the idea of youth. A lot of that has to do with the idea of youth, which actually, when you think about it to its extent, is kind of messed up. The idea that, that youth is actually before you start growing body hair. Like that's kind of messed. So, the more we can consider these ideas of the natural body is beautiful, body hair is beautiful. Like her eyebrows are beautiful. Our eyebrow is beautiful. I think that's important. So I'm glad we put her name in there in the end, even if people misinterpret it, because that's not what we meant by it. And I think it'll do some good to shine some light on it. All right, we ready to move on then?
Yep.
All right, let's move on to whatever the next segment is.
I want to know what you're thinking.
I appreciate your honesty. You're a real straight shooter.
You are the ones who are the ball lickers.
It's the comment section. We're going to take a look at the comments from the week and talk about some of our favorites. I will go first. Sergeant Snyder from the Bloodshot video says, of course I go to Google and start typing is FLO, and the first thing that comes up is flour flammable? I feel like CinemaSins probably directs more trending traffic on Google than they realize with people going to check stuff from his sins.
Yeah, Jeremy talked about that in what Danae read, but yeah, no, because I sent, like, it's like Danae and Jeremy both were teaching me things last week about New York City puppet shows and flour is flammable, and I was like, I never would have even thought about that. I just thought he knew it. He's like, oh no, he's like, I just thought it was weird, so I looked it up, and sure enough, that shit's
and how
flammable.
many people are doing that? Enough that the first response for is FLO is flour flammable. So I was glad to see that.
That's
that was
amazing.
Fun. What about you, Jonathan?
I have mine's from Bloodshot too. It's Stryker SL, I believe. Still my second favorite Guy Pearce movie about a trained killer with damaged memories being tricked into assassinating multiple people by convincing him they killed his lover.
Nice.
That is true.
It's good stuff. Danae, you?
I've mentioned so many comments, so I'm going to go to one from Twitter from Mr. Collect It. Hi, Jacob, who says, super important question for Danae, Aaron, and Jonathan. Based off of your personality, your traits, etc., what kind of bender would you be from Avatar? From Avatar: The Last Airbender. What do you think each other would be? I thought it would be kind of a fun discussion.
Okay, so we'll use this kind of as a question. I just
don't know much about them. Like, are you actually, like, with your mind, you're bending things, or?
Yeah, it's either fire, water, air, or earth.
Oh, so I can't just, like...
If you've seen the show, you kind of get a sense for the personality of those tribes a little bit, and so you'll be kind of, shooting in the dark a little bit.
I can't just make up something like I'm a trash bender. I bend trash.
Well, that means you're probably earthbender?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Although,
I hate fire. I'm not fire.
Wait, Danae, let's do this.
I don't like water either. I don't like swimming. I'm not like, I'll take a shower. That's about it.
That's
okay. What's your idea, Aaron? What's your idea?
Let's before we say any of ours, let's you and I, at least since we've seen the show, assign in our minds what tribe each of the three of us would be, so that we've got those to compare without influencing each other, and then we'll say them.
So there's water, earth, fire, air.
Mm-hmm. All right, I've got. Yep, I've got mine in mind.
I've got mine.
All right, who do you want to start with?
It's okay. It's just
That's why
fun.
we're not making you do it.
Okay, I assigned Aaron for water.
Okay, so we'll start. Why would you say water for me?
Because you are a very emotional person.
That's true. It's true.
You don't.
You eat in the shower.
That's true.
That is true. How do you? Did I say that? At
you
some point?
said that like on the first episode.
Great.
How would I forget
Great.
that?
It's true. Food tastes better in the shower. I can't explain it.
No,
it's just true. It's just absolutely true.
Not. There's
100%
no
true.
way.
You take any food. Take a bite before you get in the shower. Take a bite after you get in the shower. You will find out.
I'm never gonna find out.
This is something that I hope you guys don't think is weird, but like when you hug Aaron, he sways back and forth if he's happy.
Wouldn't that be air?
No, it feels, I don't know, maybe
Fluid.
it could be
There's
air
Oh,
too.
I see what you're saying. It's kind
There's
of
like
wavy.
Sort of fluidity to it. And so I think all of those combined, I think you would be a waterbender.
I had myself as a waterbender as well. For many of the reasons you mentioned, plus the idea that the waterbenders are often very, there's a stoicism to them and a go with the flow to them that I very much identify
You're a
with.
jellyfish,
So
man.
it doesn't
You're
have
a
a whole lot
jellyfish.
to do with the actual physicality of the
Element?
The element.
Yeah. Yes. A lot. The physicality of the elements do play into the personalities
okay.
of the tribes. So.
Okay, so for Jonathan, I chose Earth.
Me too.
Okay, because I think like you're really grounded.
Yes.
And I can see yourself being like, I don't want to,
please.
like I don't want to deal with this, and then just building yourself a little Earth cave and just being
yeah,
like,
no.
I'm done.
I've done that. It's my house. So.
Yes, there's something very straightforward about Jonathan that feels like the Earthbenders. You know, there's just, there's something very concrete about your personality. So yeah, I totally went Earth. So now I'm really curious because I really went back and forth with you. Do you want me to say you first before you do?
Yeah.
Firebender is where I landed.
For sure.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good.
We got them all.
Yeah.
Yes. I am for sure a firebender. I have a hot temper that I have been working my whole life at getting under control. But man, when I get mad, I feel it. And I can just see myself being someone who could learn the art of just like making crazy amounts of destruction.
You look really excited when you were saying that
Yeah,
too.
no,
You're just
totally.
like, I
Yeah,
can
man.
do this so right
Like I want to fucking burn it all down. No.
There is a
I got boobs.
there is a mysticism and beauty to the airbending tribe that is why I was kind of going back and forth with air and fire for you. And then I remember you throwing the cookies at me and I was like, no, it's firebender. It's totally.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's what it is for me too. I was right on the border, but I don't know if you guys do personality tests and, signs and all that stuff, but I'm a cusp. I'm always right directly in the middle of personality tests, then like your Enneagram number, even my astrological sign.
I was going to ask, are you on the cusp?
I'm directly on the cusp of my astrological sign. I was born at 12/12 on 11/22. Like I'm just genuinely kind of in the middle, and I super don't mind that because I can kind of flow back and forth. So yeah, there's times when I am super like I can feel myself being lifted up, and I could totally be an airbender, and the joy of all of that, and also like the mysticism part, super much part of me. I would just say today, my mood, I'm super a firebender, so I'm going with fire today.
No, I think that's right. I think you land as a firebender.
I'm a hybrid.
You're probably
I'm a hybrid.
Well,
yeah.
that again, shall we remember? That's what the avatar is. So you're the avatar, Danae.
Oh my god, I'm the avatar!
You know what's weird about astrological signs, though? I do think there's a lot to the astrological signs. Like, it's crazy, like, how much I'm... Like, if you read about a Gemini, like, that is straight up me.
Yeah, but Jonathan, we're both born on the same day. We're both born on the same day, and we're completely different people.
That's what I was going to say. It's really weird. You and my father-in-law, which he doesn't have the same birthday as us, but you're both Geminis. You are the only two Geminis I've ever met that I don't really feel... Like, you don't seem to have those personalities.
Yeah.
I don't know. Clearly, Aaron does not buy into astrological signs. I'm sure it's all just coincidental
not
and all
at
that
all.
kind of stuff. And you read stuff into whatever's written.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
I totally do. Like, I'm not an idiot. But I do think that there is energy around you when you're born. And I don't know. There's something there.
That's
I'm not saying
interesting. I've never heard
I'm not
you
praying to crystals.
No,
and
you're
stuff.
good. You're good, man.
Yeah.
There's certainly many things that
wish
we
I
don't
could
understand.
figure it out.
I am a proponent of the mysticism. Like there is mystery in this world, and I think it's silly of us to say there isn't because we can't know everything. So it's very arrogant to say there's no mystery in the world. And
Jessica Fletcher knew fucking everything. So
Okay,
you take that back.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
She's awesome, man. Oh god, that show's so good.
Let's move on to Beyond the Sins.
To infinity and beyond.
Somewhere beyond my wild history.
To boldly go where no man has gone before.
We're just going to chat about something else in the world of pop culture that we've seen recently, and Danae's going to kick us off.
I've seen games.
Yeah.
I've seen them all over the place.
Well,
Danae's going to kick us in the nuts.
I was going to say I was going to change it to experienced, but yeah. What have you experienced lately?
Well, technically, I have seen them, so
sure.
kind of it's the same thing. I mentioned a game a couple weeks back that I wanted to circle back to because I did end up finishing it. It was the game 7 Days. That's the one where you kind of choose your own adventure. And I had mentioned that I hadn't finished it up yet because you have to have tickets to play. And one of the options in there was to download another game and play it to level 10, and then you get a whole bunch of tickets. So if you do decide to play 7 Days, ! I would recommend, if it's still available, to go ahead and download their suggested game of Emoji Blitz. This is a Disney game, and just play to level 10. It's a super, super simple game, and that's the one that I'm going to spend the bulk of the time talking about. But just to kind of wrap up 7 Days, I did end up finishing the game, and it shows you sort of your trajectory, like the different decisions you could have made or the different stories that you could have unlocked had you made different choices, and it gives you the option to play again. Because I had gotten all of those tickets, though, I have enough to play a couple times through, which is why I would recommend downloading Emoji Blitz, because it gives you plenty of tickets to completely like end a storyline if you wanted to with the game 7 Days. So I would still recommend that game. I'm not going to go back and play it again. It was just like a fun little story for me to experience. Nice. Emoji Blitz is one that I feel a little ashamed to say I might keep it around for a while. It's not annoying me. In this game, it's a very timed one, so you have not too long to finish your little game, and it's just, you match up the different emojis and then they clear off of your board. And if you match, 5 together, you get a star, and the star does this. It's very much the same game you've seen many, many, many times. So it's not like reinventing the game wheel or anything like that, but you do unlock different characters that you can play. So for example, right now I'm playing as Mike Wachowski. And so whenever I do certain things, I can press the Mike Wachowski button and it clears certain emojis in a Mike Wachowski way. Or a finding or a Nemo way, or you even can unlock villains and the villains clean the board. I've got the Queen of Hearts, and she kind of like has these roses that clear. Anyway, there's this unique things you can do with it. But what I like about it more than all of that is once you get used to the gameplay, it plays well. It doesn't mess you up. It's a good, solid game, and it's one that you can just grab and mindlessly sort of just run through if you want to just do something and cleanse your brain palette. So I've actually enjoyed continuing to play it, so I'm going to keep it on my rotation, and maybe you'll like it too. It's super free, another great thing. You have 5 hearts, and then you're done playing for a while, and then they load up again pretty quickly. So turn off your notifications, because you're going to be reminded to play a lot on this one. Because it's Disney, and they want you to remember that they're there. They're there. Tip. Hey, emojis. Hey, you want to play again? So just turn that shit off, and you might have a good time.
I imagine that the Disney part of this is very nostalgic. There's a crack cocaine kind of feel to it, probably, with all those characters.
Yeah, the board that they load down for you, like what you're matching are the emoji pictures of all of the Disney characters, and then the next time you play it, it's a new set, it's a new board. So there's new characters that you're seeing. And I will say a couple of times they've been similar enough that it's kind of hard for your eye to adjust. Like if you play, what's that game called, Balloon Bash, or even Candy Crush, for example, every time you play, it's the same kind of gems or the same candy, and your eye gets used to what you're looking at. But that's not the case with the Emoji Blitz. It's literally it changes, and so there is a difficulty to it because your brain has to figure out how to make the patterns that solve the goals that you have for that round, and it's very fast paced as well. So it's kind of a jolt of adrenaline in a way, and it doesn't last too long because you just need to put the game down after your lives are over and move on. So that's another element of it. It is something I would never have my mom play this because it would super overwhelm her. It's way too much visually coming at you, and you can't settle into it. But sometimes that's kind of fun because you just need to like clear your mind and do something jolting and then get back into your life. So
nice.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mike Wachowski, though, this past week there was another one of those Pixar things going around on Twitter where it was like, name your top 5 favorite Pixar movies. It makes me sad that Monsters, Inc. is not on very many people's lists.
Well, I mean, when you're doing top 5 Pixar movies, you're basically picking 5 perfect movies out of 12 perfect
Monsters,
movies
Inc.
that
is
they've done.
perfect to
No,
me.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is the Pixar has made like 12 perfect movies, so how am I supposed to pick 5 of them?
And I don't think it's perfect, and I wouldn't put it in my top 5, but I will go to bat for Monsters University.
Me too.
I think that is that is so funny. And
It's very underrated. It is a
my
really
God.
good movie.
People
I totally
put it
agree.
like last.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like
I
people
don't
put it below
understand
like Cars 2.
I know, it's weird. It's a good
I don't
movie.
know. I know even the guys don't like it, or at least I know Chris. I don't think Jeremy and Barrett like it very much either if they've seen it. But
it's really good. It's really good. Yeah, I don't get it.
It's like they made a college comedy that's actually got heart to it, and it's funny and whatever.
I think people
suck.
Yeah, I think people get tired of formulas, and Pixar does have a formula. And so once you're tired of the Pixar thing, it's very easy to call really good movies adequate or, whatever. I think Monsters University is better than Finding Dory, but Finding Dory is another one that's underrated.
No, I like Finding Dory fine, but yeah, I agree. Monsters University is better.
What do you got, Jonathan?
I've been watching a lot of older movies, I've been watching a lot of movies lately, but I didn't have one specific one I really want to talk about, so I just decided I was going to talk about Turner Classic Movies. I've really, over the past couple months, I've really enjoyed kind of just having things more curated for me. I've just been kind of going with whatever's on. I've been DVRing a lot of it and then watching it, maybe the next day or whatever. But I've just been watching a lot of great stuff, and I love the way Turner Classic Movies does it, where they have a host for most of their movies, and so before the movie starts, Ben Mankiewicz or Alicia Malone or, one of their people will come on there and will talk about the movie. They might have a guest to talk to about it for a few minutes. Then they show the movie, and then after the movie, they'll talk about it some more. They even have programs, on Saturday nights, they have this show called The Essentials, where they just show what people consider to be the essential movies. This season, it's Ben Mankiewicz is on there, but it's Brad Bird is the person that's picking the movies. Yeah, they have a show every Saturday night called Noir Alley, where they show a different film noir every Saturday night. And it's just, I don't know, I've just been really enjoying it. If you're a lover of classic film, you probably already know about it, but the problem with it is that it's not really accessible outside of cable. I think it's on Hulu and I think it's on YouTube, if you have those packages, but they do have an app called Watch TCM, but you have to have a cable subscription. However, I know a lot of you out there probably use your parents' I'm not judging. And a lot of you out there probably use your parents' HBO password, stuff like that. So you might have access to this and not even realize it. And you could get the app, download it, and you can watch the movies a day later. But just I don't know how to get people to watch classic cinema that don't. So I'm not, and I don't really care. I mean, if you're watching any movies, that's cool with me. It's just something that I love, and I don't know. It's just been I've really enjoyed kind of turning myself over to them these past few months, and just looking to see. It kind of gets exciting to see what's on every night, and I don't know. Just been having a lot of fun with it. So Turner Classic Movies is my recommendation this week.
No, that's nice. And there's also a curated list in HBO Max, which if you mentioned that, I apologize. I didn't hear that mentioned, but
I did not mention it. I forgot about that.
So yeah, there's a TCM tab or icon in your HBO Max app, and they've curated a lot of those. And for me, and I know I'm not the normal person, I would rather they put everything on there, but I do understand why they're curating, because lots of choices can be overwhelming. I just feel like you could still put everything on there and then curate the front page or something.
Yeah,
but
and I don't know. I mean, I know they show a lot of Warner Brothers, but I don't know if they have specific contracts with studios and stuff. I don't know how exactly, because it seems like eventually they just kind of show everything like that. I'd never really. There's really been no rhyme or reason. There's definitely movies they show more often than others, but yeah.
Well, this leads nicely into my Beyond the Sins.
What you got?
I went on a classic movie binge of some that I should have seen but haven't, my list of shame. And the focus apparently this week was Steve McQueen, because I knocked off The Great Escape and Bullitt off of my list.
Awesome.
Oh my God, Aaron, you said Steve McQueen, and I was like, the car from Pixar or whatever.
No, that's Lightning. That's Lightning McQueen.
Right. I remember that now. I didn't.
Yeah, I've been on a Lightning McQueen kick. I watched all
like,
3
this
Cars
is
movies.
lame.
You're the
Oh
one
my
playing
God.
Bejeweled for, Disney characters. What do you got? What do you got a problem with Lightning McQueen? Come on. Steve McQueen is not Lightning McQueen, but he is in a couple of great movies that I saw. That would be Bullitt and The Great Escape. I watched The Great Escape first, and whoa, is that movie amazing. What a great, apparently true story. And even at the beginning, they have the text that says that they did compress some things and change some things, which most true stories do. But apparently this happened. And I wasn't ready to care so much about this group of prisoners trying to escape a Nazi war camp. And I think a lot of it has to do with the incredible cast. In that movie, you have Steve McQueen mentioned, you have Charles Bronson, James Garner, James Coburn. It's also weird watching, not weird, but interesting watching old stuff where you're like, at the end, where it's like, Richard Attenborough. And I'm like, what? That was John Hammond from Jurassic Park? What are you talking about? It looks nothing like I thought Richard Attenborough looked.
He's so good in it,
And
too.
he's so great in this movie. Yeah, totally. And then Donald Pleasance, who I basically know from the Return to Witch Mountain, growing up watching the Disney movies. And I was like,
Sam Loomis.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's just such a great cast, and it's really well done. You care about every single character. The other thing is just watching it and being like, how liberally Chicken Run patterned itself after this movie. I mean, it is The Great Escape, but with chickens, basically. So it was fun. It was a really fun experience. I highly recommend it. I know it's hard to go back and watch a movie that was made in 1963. But we've got time right now, so
it shouldn't be hard.
Yeah, I know. And then the other one was Bullitt, which again had some great names in it. In addition to Steve McQueen, you've got Robert Duvall in there, Robert Vaughn, Jacqueline Bisset, and it's this one I did like this. But this is very much a prototype kind of action movie. This was 1968, and this is a movie all about chasing down the bad guys, and there are lots of chases in this movie, including a very famous car chase. There's probably the most famous car chase of all time in movies. I didn't realize that Bullitt was the main character's name until watching this movie. It's funny how, that I thought bullets were things you fired out of guns. I thought it probably came from that. And then I realized it's not spelled like that, you idiot. And so I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy's name. I recommend both these movies. They were both a lot of fun to watch.
Bullitt's weird because it's kind of the precursor to like the car-based type stuff, like even like Fast and the Furious and stuff like that. And then and also the cop genre, like the dirty or cop genre. But I think in the same time, a couple years later, Dirty Harry gets credited with the cop thing, and French Connection gets credited with the car thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Bullitt did all that before.
I agree.
But the stunt work in Bullitt is, the car stuff is just insane. The story is fine. It's a little thin. But that's
why I came out liking The Great Escape better. I totally agree. Bullitt is a much thinner story. It really is a precursor to visual eye candy action movie making. It's a precursor to, like you said, Fast and Furious. In fact, I don't know if I should admit this. As soon as I was done watching Bullitt, I fired up the first Fast and Furious and watched it. I'm not even kidding. And I was like, oh, this is. I had two realizations. Number one, how much even these modern movies owe to that movie in the car chase. And number two, Fast and Furious, the original movie, is actually a better movie than most of the Fast and Furious movies. Like it's actually
talking about quality.
It's actually a pretty good movie, and I had forgotten that, so I was glad I fired it up again. So yeah. Anyhow, Bullitt and The Great Escape are both recommends, but definitely The Great Escape if you're going to go catch up on something. And again, most movie lovers have probably seen it. It was on my list of shame. I know it's a classic. I just hadn't gotten around to it.
Well, and older war movies sometimes can be a little, not problematic, but can be a little weird because
intimidating.
That's just a different time though too, and it was just a different attitude towards a lot of this stuff. This is pre-Vietnam.
Yeah.
I mean, Great Escape had to be made in 1963. Like, that movie had to be made in the 60s. If that movie was made in the 70s, it would have been way too fucking depressing.
Yeah.
And if it had been made before the 60s, I think that was just the perfect kind of, everything just kind of came together. It was the right time to make it.
It's already pretty depressing.
No, it is, but it still has like that 60s sheen to it.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It's not,
it's
not that gritty 1970s.
And I think what you're
saying,
saying,
Bullitt is more like.
I think what you're saying is it's it's very heroic. The characters are very,
Yes,
there's,
there you go.
There's a real heroic aspect to the characters instead of the anti-hero that would become more the thing after the 70s, with the grime and the
70s
grit.
you get like Deer Hunter and Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
a lot of the horror movies are even, Texas Chainsaw Massacre is deep in Vietnam, symbolism and stuff. So, yeah, it's great, though. I love it. Absolutely love it.
So what would be the odds that Danae will ever watch The Great Escape? Like, what percentage would we put the odds of Danae ever watching The Great Escape in her? 0? You don't think there's a slight even chance?
Well, unless Justin maybe got her to watch it or something.
What are the odds, Danae? What are the odds?
Of me watching any movie?
No,
or
just The Great
this
Escape.
one?
The Great Escape.
Okay, well, first of all, there used to be this game commercial for the Grape Escape.
Yes.
And I wanted that game so bad. And I remember my parents got it for my brother and I. And it was in the season where you thought that, the commercials were magical because it was these animated grapes and you'd squish them and you'd cut them and you'd roll them over with clay. And then they would magically chop in half or squish or whatever. But then when you get the game, it's very difficult to cut clay in half with plastic scissors that fall apart. So one of the most disappointing games of my life, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. What was the question?
I think you answered it. I think that's the answer. That's going to do it for Behind the Sins this week. Don't forget to make sure you are subscribed and go ahead and leave a comment or rating as well. You can hang out with us on Twitter. I am at Aaron Dicer. She is at Danae Says.
DENEESAYS.
And he is at Sam Loomis 13. So for Jonathan Watkins, Danae Hughes, and myself, we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Send any feedback to behindthesinspod@gmail.com and be sure to subscribe or message us at Twitter. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
But does it sound like me or does it sound like robot? I don't know why I do that accent. Nobody talk to me. I'm doing a show for the next forever hours. Jonathan can't hear me. How about now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Mm-mm. How about now? How about now? How about now? How about now? No? Oh, shit. Aaron.
I made it.
I can't hear Aaron either. Maybe
Can
it's
you
me.
hear me?
Can you hear me, Aaron?
Yeah, I can hear everybody.
Okay, so it's you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear each other?
Yes.
Yeah, I can't hear either one of you, so what could that mean?
That could mean that
All right,
whatever.
let me leave and come back.
No.
Well,
Wait.
Okay, bye.
We've been trying to figure this out for 10 minutes. Where have you been? You're late.
I'm 7 minutes late, and I was 6 minutes late when I joined, and I'm sorry. And I'm not saying I'm not late. 10 minutes is a little extreme.
And that's what it's like working for Aaron Dicer or with Aaron Dicer. I'm like over here furiously typing.
Furiously. It's interesting. That word doesn't always mean angry, huh?
Mm-hmm. It sure is. Words are fun, aren't they, Aaron?
Yep. Well,
they're your favorite.
Lots of times when people think of like the movies Fast and the Furious, they're like, oh yeah, because speedy and angry. And it's like, well, no, because Furious actually has an element of speed to it. Like that's sometimes forgotten because it's used so often contextually with anger. But when you're furiously doing something, you're doing it fast.
That's right. Like furiously looking for your other sock before school.
Or furiously masturbating or whatever it might be.
Cool. Way to take it there.
That's just where I've heard that word a lot.
Sure, you've heard it. Sure. Meanwhile, Jonathan appears to be restarting his entire life.
Yeah, not just his computer.
Nope.
I'm sure he's furiously working on it.
Okay, so I restarted my computer and everything, and then realized my headphones weren't plugged all the way in.
Yeah, that's what I was trying. We were gonna troubleshoot a couple things, but
a few nights ago, I posted on Twitter this picture of like a freaking footprint that just appears out of nowhere on our screen door. It's the creepiest thing. It's like a 3-toed footprint. I think it's from the dog just licking, like its little tongue licks or the toes.
Oh, like on the inside of the house.
Yeah.
So it's not like a bird.
But it's so much more fun to think it's a ghost.
But it's not fun.
When I was a kid and my grandparents lived like maybe 15 minutes from us, I would spend the night there occasionally. And they had a Doberman pinscher. Her name was Sadie. And she died like a week before I spent the night at my grandmother's house this year. And I don't know, I was like 8 or 9 or something. And I swear to God, I saw her. Like I woke up and she was standing by the bed I was sleeping in, panting on me.
What?
But I mean, it was a dream or something. But I mean, but that's the only experience I've ever had that like felt real. So
man.
There is scientific evidence that the human mind is so much more powerful than we know, right? Like there's scientific evidence that we can actually make ourselves ill.
I agree. I would almost be more likely to believe in like telekinesis than I would in the existence of ghosts, just because I think there's parts of our mind that haven't been explored. I really don't believe in telekinesis, but I'm just saying, like,
no, that's the log line.
That would surprise me less if it was discovered than a ghost.
Yeah,
I want to say I've never tried to move something with my mind, but I want to believe we've all tried at some point in our life.
I have. I for sure have tried to do telekinesis when I was younger.
Yeah, please. I don't think psychics are real. I think it's all crap. But I would be, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me like as much.
I think I've done it more than others. I think I do it still just about at least twice a week.
I don't sleep well in light, that's for sure.
Although I've never thought about getting a sleep mask. I mean, like that's just never occurred to me. I even right now I'm talking about it and then I'll forget about it by the time we get done. So
I was just going to ask you if you've ever tried one of those. But I think those are difficult because you obviously have to, as you move around in the bed, I would think that it would be it's a different sensation.
Have neither one of you worn one?
No. Well, and you got to understand that is the one time of the day that I don't have anything on my face.
That's true.
Like I don't have to wear glasses, and so
we had some pretty comfortable ones that you really couldn't. I mean, obviously you can tell something's on your face, and for me, anything on my face is going to be annoying. So I just didn't like it. I tried it a couple nights, and I just didn't enjoy it. And you're right, it shifts around. I suppose if you got a really good one,
I would wake up terrified I was blind because. It would just be like, because you still just be waking up, and you'd be like, oh, what? Why can't I see?
My ear, thank you for asking. I have an ear infection. I went to the doctor yesterday. Okay, so I don't like going to the doctor. I don't like taking medication, especially when my body can just do what it's supposed to do and take care of itself or whatever. So I was like, I'll go to the doctor just to confirm whether I have this or not, and then I'll decide whether I'm going to take the meds that they suggest to me. And on the way to the doctor, I'm talking to my friend Jen, and she's telling me, oh man, I'm so glad you're going because I didn't go to the doctor and I had an ear infection and I sneezed and my eardrum burst.
Oh.
So I was like, okay, so I'm taking the meds.
But isn't like
one of the weird things about me going down a couple years ago was now when people find that out, they're like, oh, how many medications do you have to take? And like, I didn't have to take medication at all. Like at any point, there was like, that's the weirdest thing about my health issues is they are so, like there's no medication that would help me. My heart's fine. My lungs are fine. It's just, my heart decides to shut down every once in a while. So it's one of those weird things where I'll go to my cardio appointment. They'll like list your medications here. I'm like, done. I took some Advil for a headache a couple weeks ago. That's about it.
I feel like we should definitely have a segment about spreadsheets.
I'm okay with that. What made you think we don't like spreadsheets? I don't remember.
Well, Aaron in the show, he was like, we don't have time for administrative chat. We can't talk about spreadsheets.
Listen, we love spreadsheets, but our audience is going to be bored by it.
No, listen.
It's like family photos. It's like, oh, I love these. And everybody else is like, I've seen the third picture.
We're going to talk about spreadsheets because 4 people on Twitter. I know, it's a lot of people, guys.
It is quite the sample size. Let me do a spreadsheet of all the people that have told us they want to hear about spreadsheets.
Yeah, I'm just going to say, like, I'm going to have my own administrative segment where we can talk about all things to do with what it takes to run a company. We can talk about Trello. We can talk about Asana and Google Suite. We can talk about shared calendars and Google spreadsheets.
Stop. It's too much. I'm getting too excited.
I got it.
Right? All right, let's do it. Let's talk about spreadsheets. I'm going to talk about my movie spreadsheet for the next 10 minutes. And
No. We need to give ourselves a little bit of a. We have to
Oh, you
choose
do
one.
do you do
one
movie lists
spreadsheet.
and stuff like that?
I have a spreadsheet of all the movies I own, which ones I have transferred to digital for our Plex server, and as well as movies that are on my wish list. So I have a list of every movie that I would like to own at some point. These are the columns: the title of the movie, the year of release, the month of release, in case I want to organize them by release date.
I don't go that far.
What I have them on disc. So is it a 4K disc, 4K set, Blu-ray disc, all that kind of stuff. If I have it on digital, what the digital file is it a 4K file, a 1080p file? So I keep that updated. And so I have all that so that I can sort it and kind of determine. So like there's currently, there are 1,836 entries on this list. So then I can sort by disc, and I can find out that I have 174 on 4K in one format or another.
Wow.
And then a total of, once you include the Blu-rays, a total of 582.
Awesome.
So, and
That's
then
a lot, man.
And then I can also tell which I have multiple copies of. So there's I can tell that I have 3 copies of Avatar for some reason. So there you go.
You're right. That was boring. Let's
See,
move on.
I told you.
I do want to I do want to say a few things about spreadsheets. First of all, I thought it was really cool to get tweets about spreadsheets because fellow nerds are my faves. So at Gator Gaming, Isaac Horvat said, "Full disclosure, I started a spreadsheet trying to keep track of all movies ever mentioned in every Sincast ever, as well as trivia tidbits and opening greeting of every member. Why? I don't know."
Oh, I forgot to tell you the coolest thing about my spreadsheet that I set up.
Oh, Jesus.
I forgot to tell you.
Lord in heaven.
No.
You started this
No.
today.
This is beautiful. No, I got to tell you this because this helped me out quite a bit because sometimes I don't want to look through the entire thing or even do a control find to see if I already have a movie. It's just that extra step. So I have a value function on the first column that when there's a repeated item, it shades it in green. So as soon as I type it in, it automatically shades it in green, and I know, oh, there's another one in there somewhere.
Yeah, but,
that's
but
cool.
if it's already in the list, is it Excel?
Huh? No, this is Google Sheets.
See, on Excel, if you've already got it typed in, once you start typing it
oh,
shows
sure.
you that
No.
you've already typed it in.
It does that too, but the thing is when you have so many things of similar names, it stops doing that.
My favorite spreadsheet, just so you know, is right now is the one that I use to track the flow. And this is why I think it'd be maybe interesting for CinemaSins behind the scenes people. I use a spreadsheet to track the flow of every script and video that we're working on so that at any moment in time, if anyone asks, what's going on with this script or where are we with this project, I can quickly glance over and see if we're on target based on its due dates or its posting date, etc. And I really like being able to do that. And that one I'm in that spreadsheet probably 4, 5, 6 times a day, updating stuff. And there are other systems that do that, like Asana website. They do the same kind of a thing, only it's more visually pleasing to track your projects. But I can just do it faster on a spreadsheet. So I just make it look pretty. And that's one of my favorite spreadsheets that I use. Oh my God. You should see Aaron's spreadsheet for his budget.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I can't even imagine with 4 kids, you have to. What are you supposed to do?
He shared it with Justin and I so that we could have help because we're like, we don't have a budget. He's like, well, let me share our spreadsheet.
It's not even so much a budget. Like, we're not that tight, but like it still just shows you like the percent. Like I just set it up to where it shows you the percentage it's going towards food or whatever. And we realized like at one point we realized how we were eating out way too much.
That's the first thing every budget will teach you.
Yeah, but all you've been doing is eating out.
Yeah.
So how are you budgeting?
No, we don't eat out all the time.
You said you've been eating out every day. You said
well,
you just
that was
no.
That was like the first week, first or second week of isolation. It sounded like you've been
doing that for 3 months.
And it was when Little Caesars had free delivery.
Their deal.
And they had their deal, and so it was like, and I have a kid that works at Little Caesars too, so it was like $8 to feed my whole family, and I was like, well, that makes more sense than grocery shopping at this point.
I mean, unfortunately, it's Little Caesars, but yeah,
pizza forever.
I love Little Caesars. How dare you?
Oh God, I will say this: I like their wings.
Well, it's great for a pizza place. It's something.
I also wanted to give a shout out to Alexis at French Ops. and Mason at Fadelight Night. I don't know exactly what the handle is on Twitter, but they're both talking about trying to quit soda after our chat last week.
Nice. Fun.
Oh, good for them. And tell them to leave me alone.
Oh, I know. We can do an experiment. You and I are going to start playing World of Warcraft together.
Danae's always on the prowl.
All right, fine. So we'll just play Dungeons and Dragons together.
Nope.
I will DM. I'll be the DM, and then we can super get addicted to these awesome games.
But I'll watch movies with you.
No, that's all right.
That's my say. Hey, before we move on, can you guys can't hear my daughter, can you? Like,
no.
She's in the kitchen right now, and there's microwave, and she's singing or something. I don't know what's going on.
Nope.
Hopefully, she's not doing anything she shouldn't be doing. But
She's in the kitchen and she's singing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Danae, go first. Jonathan? Thank you, my seals.
So here we are at the very end of the show. Aaron's gone. Jonathan's gone. I'm closing down my notes, getting ready to leave my little closet studio. And I remember that I had a poem that I wrote for a sin that I cut from my script that I was going to talk about during the show. So now I'll just tell you about it, oh listener. So there's a lot of plots going on in Rick and Morty. And I wrote a poem about how you can discover the C plot. And this is what I wrote. If the characters become investigatory, which moves the plot and saves a lot, then you have the convenient C story. I don't know if that's a bunch of bullshit, but that's what I wrote. Okay, bye.